The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
Good morning, pop culture. We are live. It is Tuesday, November 13th, 2018. It's 7:45 a.m., and it's time to start the day with the best morning show of all time. So yesterday, we suffered the loss of Stan Lee, and we're going to talk about that for a little bit. The whole show is not just Stan Lee, but the most important part is Stan Lee, because Stan Lee is without a doubt the most important comic book creator of all time. Yesterday, when I went live, I really didn't know what to say because it was more of a shock and awe reaction. Oh my God, Stan Lee died. We got to talk about this. Trying to connect with other people out there. Because, I sent a message to Dion and it was just like, oh yeah, I'm sad too. But I wanted to have a discussion with as many people as possible about Stan Lee. And we did. We reached a lot of people. But I didn't really have time to formulate my thoughts. So today, I'm taking it back. I'm going to present the thoughts I have formulated. And we're going to talk about the celebration of Stan Lee's life and some of the garbage bullshit that's going on social media right now. That people are using his name to evoke all kinds of bullshit. But we're also going to talk about the Toy Story 4 trailer, or lack thereof. We're going to talk about Detective Pikachu, which is a surprise for everyone, including me. And then we're going to talk about a few other things. But before we get into that, let's give a very special shout out to today's sponsor, our friend Yakov Merkin for his Galaxy Ascendant series, which the link is in the description below, and T. Alan Diaz's Lunatic City series. Take a walk on the take a walk on the dark side of the moon with the first installment of this gritty sci-fi noir for just 99 cents. The links are in the description below. You can see where my mind is. Take a walk on the wild side. I've been watching a lot of Married with Children and thinking of wildness. Peg Bundy. One of the best episodes I think they ever put out was the one about the Bundy family barbecue, where Al gets turned on by Peggy cleaning, so he sleeps with her 4 times in one afternoon. And then Kelly and Bud raid someone's house to use the ash to cook the burgers, and here it's the urn of Marcy's aunt. So I was cracking up. I've been having a lot of fun, and I've been thinking, Married with Children could definitely not be made today, nor should it be, but it should be remembered for how great it truly was, and how sometimes you just need to be crass in comedy. Comedy is not about political correctness. It's not funny to be politically correct. It's quite stupid, because who determines what's politically correct and who doesn't? We'll talk about that at a later date. But I've been having a lot of fun with that. Tonight, the High Council is here on World Class Bullshitters, so that's going to be a lot of fun. You have Ethan, Jeremy, and myself. We're here to discuss the world of Star Wars, the world of Stan Lee, and you'll hear a good perspective from a comic artist pro. Me. Oh, and Ethan's there too. Speaking of the comic, that's all I've been doing is working on Stealing Solo, so getting closer and closer and closer every day, which is exciting for me, because once it's done, I will ship it off to the colorist, and, it's nice that there's the funds to pay for a colorist. Normally it would be, oh man, I drew all these pages, now I gotta color them, and then I never got a project done because it took too long. So that was the case with the comic, and let's see where we are in terms of viewership. 130 viewers, so we'll be starting the show relatively soon. So, folks, if you could give us 133 thumbs up, because why not? Superfan Adam Shine, give us a like for each one of your dog accounts. We'll talk about Marvel and their SJW rhetoric and stuff now that Stan Lee's gone. Because remember, Stan Lee really did not dictate any of the direction of Marvel Comics proper. He was just used as a figurehead to promote the ideals of a fringe minority group of people. So, while it's definitely sad that Stan Lee has passed away, and I really, really wish I had the opportunity to meet the man, and yes, he was the man. It was funny. They say Bruce Lee is the legend, Jet Li is great, but Stan was the man. And he really, really, really was. I mean, I don't think people... sometimes when a celebrity dies, people are like, oh, I was such a David Bowie fan, or I was such a this fan. I'm like, were you? But then you see all these people in these groups, I'm like, yeah, I could see everyone being a Stan Lee fan, because even if you didn't read comic books, you watched shit based off of his creations, you've seen the movies. Stan Lee has touched way more people's lives than people have realized, or could realize. And it really pisses me off when they start using his memory for a lot of shit that Stan Lee really doesn't buy into, or didn't buy into. I got a couple tweets to talk about in the show proper. It was really maddening to wake up and read these types of stupid things. And then you look at the people who actually posted them, and they're fucking morons. And I'm not going to be outing them or doxing them or giving their names or anything like that. But these were tweets put out on a public forum. These people do not work for Marvel Comics, so do not try to scour their Twitters looking for some damning information, because it's not there. But one in particular tweet really pissed me off, and I had a really good response to this person. And I hope you guys agree with my response to said person. Yeah, Stan Lee did touch everyone's lives. In just a moment, when we start, I will talk about how I first was introduced to Stan Lee, and pretty much once I figured out who he was at an early age, I was always a fan. I don't really have any reverence or respect for Walt Disney. I mean, I don't have any lack of respect for Walt Disney, but I just don't care. But I did have that for Stan Lee. Yeah, Twitter does become a cesspool when people die, but you know what was nice? All the nice positive outpouring. You had The Rock come out and say some stuff. You had Robert Downey Jr. and a lot of the Marvel actors. That kind of stuff was really nice and indicative of a positive outpouring that I really appreciate and enjoy. Hold on. YouTube signed me out for some reason. Give me a quick second, folks. Sorry for the weird technical gaffe. I don't know why it would do that. Okay. Anyway, that was kind of bizarre, because I went to click on something and it said, you are logged out. It was the Detective Pikachu thing. That's what had logged me out. Oh no, I saw Detective Pikachu. But today I do ask that people share their favorite Stan Lee memories. It was, it's something that is for everybody. Yeah, YouTube's been more than weird just yesterday. YouTube's been weird in general. We've been having a lot of issues, ups and downs, and subscribers. It's bizarre. We'll gain a bunch, we'll lose the same amount, then we'll gain it back a couple days later. I don't really know what's going on. I don't know what's going on one bit. But if Stan Lee comics start coming out, I will not personally support them. Oh, in memory of Stan Lee. You know what? If you really want to remember Stan Lee, go buy one of the millions of things in print already. Go read Spider-Man the Icon. Go read the Marvel book from the 1990s that Stan Lee was more involved with. Go read the old Marvel Masterworks with forwards by Stan Lee. Jeff the Iron Wolf, thank you very much for your first super chat of the morning. Morning, Jeff. Stan Lee triumphed at life. He really did. He triumphed at life. He excelled. I mean, his favorite phrase was Excelsior. Onward and upward to greater things is what I believe it means. And I really don't have a bad thing to say about Stan Lee. It's not about grave standing. You can go back. That's the one thing. This is the reason why I have no shame in talking about Stan Lee in the way I do. The positive outpouring that I have. Because you can go back and you can listen to the Steve Ditko memorial we did here on the channel. You can go back about a month and a half ago and listen to the elder abuse issue about Stan Lee and how I have nothing but positive things to say about him in life and in death. So for those out there that may see the title of this video and think, oh my god, what's going on now? Just calm your tits. I've been a Stan Lee fan the whole time. When The Rock dies, if this show's still around or if I'm off doing other things, no matter what, when The Rock dies, I'll revive this show just for him. So believe me, there's a handful of celebrities that I actually care about because they've impacted my life, they've impacted our lives. If I look around this room right now and I look at the things that Stan Lee was responsible for creating the original version of that, made merchandise. There's countless things. My box of Spider-Man cereal, my X-Men action figures. Let's see what else. My Spider-Man collection. So many things that Stan Lee is responsible for. And the one word that describes how everyone should feel about him: respect. So now we have hit our 200 viewer mark. And in good time, folks. So remember, we start at 7:45, and as soon as we get 200 people, we can start the show. So if you guys are sitting at home anxiously awaiting for when I start the show proper, well, all you got to do is get here early, and we can start even earlier. So let's get on with today's main topic. So yesterday, the world was shocked by the death of Stan Lee, and it still continues to mourn. I went live yesterday, but it was incredibly hard not to blabber on because I just didn't know what to say. I wanted to talk about his importance. I wanted to talk about his personal impact on me. I wanted to talk about it all. Now, I did manage to get something out, but I just don't feel like it was enough. So today's show will be about Stan Lee. It will be a memorial of Stan Lee. And on Thursday night, the show's not going to be dedicated to Stan Lee again, but we will mention it because Dion is a comic book fan, much like I am, and it'd be nice to hear Dion's thoughts as well. So, my first introduction to Stan Lee was as the narrator of an old Spider-Man cartoon, just titled Spider-Man, not the 60s show because he was not the narrator, but the show came out in 1981, and my mom, the reason I'm into comic books and all this stuff, bought me a tape from Avon. Now, if you don't know what Avon is and you're part of the world, it's just a catalog that comes out, and you can buy stuff. You can buy cosmetics, toys, random shit. And I got a Spider-Man Incredible Hulk VHS tape. And that was my first introduction to the voice of Stan Lee. But my first time seeing him was when I would watch the X-Men videotapes from Pizza Hut. Now, even back then, when I was 4 or 5 years old, I knew his importance. I knew he created a lot of characters, and I knew he had an incredible voice. But if we fast forward to 2002 when Spider-Man was out and my excitement was, through the roof, I really got into Stan Lee because the Spider-Man movie was the first film that I counted down the days for. Seriously, it was every day. I couldn't wait. Funnily enough, the first time I actually knew they were making a Spider-Man film was when I found the action figure at Walmart. Because, early on, late 2001, early 2002, we had the internet. I didn't really use it very much. I would look up Super Smash Bros. Melee cheats or codes or how to unlock Sonic, the rumors of the day. But that Spider-Man film was just really big for me. If anyone ever wants to know why I got into comic book art, it's because of that movie and because of Stan Lee. So my mom took me to a store called Media Play, which is no longer with us, and I got a book written by Stan Lee, drawn by John Buscema, the best comic book artist of all time, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And I know a lot of people out there, a lot of creators have that book. They picked it up. It's fun. It's not going to make you the world's best comic book artist, but it is great for what it is. And if you don't have a copy, I suggest you pick it up. Even if you have just a slight interest in how to draw comics, start there. It's written by Stan Lee, so you know it's going to have fun, punchy dialogue. But back to the Spider-Man movie. The build for this was so incredible for me personally, and I would watch everything. I mean, everything. We had satellite back then, so I'd watch E! Entertainment. They'd have an interview with Stan Lee. CBS, NBC, he may appear on a Tonight Show or something like that. I remember just watching everything about that, and Stan Lee was the person I wanted to hear from the most. Not really Sam Raimi or Tobey Maguire, but Stan Lee, because I knew he created Spider-Man, or at least co-created. So when Spider-Man came out on DVD that year in 2002, it came out November 1st, 2002, I was in the 8th grade. I took a bus from downtown all the way up to a neighborhood to this mall to get this deluxe edition box set. So I got home, I opened it up, and the movie came with a second DVD titled Stan Lee's Mutants, Monsters, and Marvels, Creating Spider-Man and Here Comes the Heroes. So now this was my first time hearing Stan Lee discuss the creation, the formation of the Marvel Universe, before there was a Marvel Cinematic Universe. And he's being interviewed by Kevin Smith, and say what you want about Kevin Smith in the current day. Back then, he was like the face of geek culture and Hollywood. The crossover was Kevin Smith. And Stan Lee was on there, and he talked about the past of Marvel, and I just ate this shit up. I mean, I watched this, I listened to this every day, and I'm not exaggerating. I would put this on, I would draw. I have, back before I used sketchbooks, I used to use lined notebook paper, and I would sit and I would draw pictures of Spider-Man and people and all of this stuff. And I would just listen to Stan Lee talk. He's got a really, really soothing, relaxing voice. Even in his old age, he never really lost what made his voice great. Because if you listen to somebody like a Sean Connery or a Harrison Ford, their voices have changed over the years. But if you go back and you listen to these old MMMS, which stands for the Merry Marvel Marching Society records, because see, Stan Lee was an innovator beyond just writing these stories. He had fan clubs, and he went and he had a record pressed way back in the 60s, and you could hear the voices of the creators, which was uncommon, unheard of, because you may know what Stan Lee looked like in the back of a comic, or you may have seen a print ad of Bob Kane or somebody, but you never really heard their voices. These guys weren't rock stars. I mean, the cartoonists of the late 30s and 40s, like who did Terry the Pirate, Milton Caniff, those guys, when they were doing their newspaper strips, they were like celebrities themselves. When we get to the Stan Lee era early on, and this Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, it's the characters that were the rock stars, and the guys were just kind of the names. But Stan had this record pressed, and you got to hear his voice. And even back then, you could tell the same wit was there, and the voice was the same. It was always that recognizable New York accent. So I did watch that constantly, and I basically only was a Marvel guy. I would read Batman. Batman, kind of transcends the whole Marvel versus DC thing. But I would read Wizard magazine. I would pick up these books all the time on comics, anything I could, pick up and enjoy. And that really stuck with me till about the early 2010s when Marvel sort of lost it. But while the modern comics turned to shit, I would go back, and I still do, I read the old classic stuff. Early Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, all that stuff. Now, not everything is perfect. It's good. I would suggest everybody read it all. But the classic Spider-Man, the early Spider-Man stuff is truly great. There hasn't been a single superhero that had all of the hallmarks of his character that early on. So we had that, and I have that. I have these things called Marvel Masterworks, and I've read those books more times than I can count. They're the old Ditko and Lee issues. And I've read them countless times. And the funny thing is, even to this day, even before Stan Lee had passed, every time I read an old comic, when I read the caption balloons, not the balloons, but the caption boxes, I think of Stan Lee's voice. And it kind of just adds a little bit of depth to the experience. Because these stories are simple and they're short sometimes. But it helps. And I'll still do it now to this day, even more so. But when it comes to the Spider-Man stories and my love of Spider-Man, I will admit that Stan Lee is responsible for about 50% of it. So I know a lot of people right now are going to use this time to get on their platform and tell you how Stan Lee wasn't so great, how they're conflicted, and basically how those people are full of shit. But even if it was 50%, 30%, or 10%, it was 100% more of what the people criticizing Stan Lee has done. So I think it's pretty shitty for these people to try to bring to attention all these great truths that they think are relevant right now. I've always said, Jack Kirby contributed just as much. Steve Ditko has contributed just as much. But Stan Lee brought the voice. Stan Lee did so much. When people think about 1970s comics, what was Stan Lee doing? He was trying to make movie deals for these characters. Stan Lee's the reason why the Star Wars comic, nobody wanted to touch Star Wars stuff. So this guy named Charles Lippincott went to Stan Lee in Marvel in the 70s, and shit happened. And the Marvel comics from Star Wars were huge hits. They went through multiple printings, and they're worth some money nowadays. So Stan Lee was a visionary. I don't think visionary was a phrase that is too great for him. Seriously. And then we get to the the movie cameos, and we'll talk about those. I have the link for the greatest Stan Lee movie cameos in yesterday's video as well as today's. And that video went up 1 million views since his death. It was like a 3.4 million, now it's at 4.4 million. And that just goes to show you the outpouring of respect, of love, of sadness for Stan Lee. Seriously, normally when somebody passes away and you go through Facebook, you see a couple posts. I could run my finger through the app and it was Stan Lee, Stan Lee, Stan Lee, Stan Lee, Stan Lee, Stan Lee, Stan Lee from everywhere. And you know what? He deserved it. Now, I wanted today's show to be a nice, peaceful memorial for Stan Lee, but this is 2018, and pieces of trash do exist on social media, and they're acting in their most tasteless of manners. So comic professionals, many of them, are doing that. They're calling out Stan Lee, they're saying these terrible things, but I do not have a comic professional's Twitter to talk about. There is a tweet from a person. They will not be named because I'm not going to put them on Front Street if they, their names are out there on these stupid forums posting all this garbage. But I wanted to use this to talk about Stan Lee in a positive way. So this person posted at 10:51 a.m., so I'm guessing Eastern time yesterday, or excuse me, Western time, Pacific. Stan Lee just died. And then about 20 minutes later, they say, real talk, Stan Lee was racist, homophobic, and accused of sexual harassment multiple times. He was creepy and underhanded. That doesn't mean he deserved elder abuse he got or that he deserved to die, but I'm not wasting my time mourning that bitch. So hold your anger. Hold your anger. Don't worry. See, here's how we deal with idiots like that. You can say all these things about Stan Lee. Stan Lee was not a racist. Stan Lee was not homophobic. Stan Lee was not any of those terrible things. Stan Lee was progressive in the best sense of the word. Look at the X-Men. The X-Men were used to combat racism, to do these things, to bring these causes to the attention of the viewer without them knowing that they're being taught a lesson. You see, people like Stan Lee, people like John Carpenter, I don't have problems when you try to have a message in a story. But that message needs to be delivered in a very good way. And I feel like that's the one thing that is lost on today's people that try to tell you these beautiful messages wrapped up in these terrible stories. Stan Lee's messages were wrapped up in really great stories. And that is why his stuff, 50, 60, 70 years on, even 100 years from now, will still be remembered in a positive way. Because Stan Lee may be gone, but he'll never be forgotten. And to fight stupid quotes like that, let me use words from Stan Lee himself. This comes from Stan's soapbox. Let's lay it right on the line. Bigotry and racism are among the deadliest social ills plaguing the world today. But unlike a team of costume supervillains, they can't be halted with a punch to the snoot or a zap from a ray gun. The only way to destroy them is to expose them, to reveal them for the insidious evils that they really are. The bigot is an unreasoning hater, one who hates blindly, fanatically, indiscriminately. If his hang-up is a black man, he hates all black men. If a redhead once offended him, he hates all redheads. If some foreigner beat him to a job, he's all down on foreigners. He hates people he's never seen, people he's never known, with equal intensity, with equal venom. Now, we're not trying to say it's unreasonable for one human being to bug another, but although anyone has the right to dislike anyone, it's totally irrational, patiently insane, or to condemn an entire race, to despise an entire nation, to vilify an entire religion. Sooner or later, we must learn to judge each other on our own merits. Sooner or later, if man is ever to be worthy of his destiny, we must fulfill our hearts with tolerance. For then, and only then, will we be truly worthy of the concept that man was created in the image of God. A God who calls us all his children. That is the perfect way to remember Stan Lee. Because, yes, thank you, phone. Because now we're living in a world where the people that create these comics find themselves to be the villains that they always think they're fighting. The people that write the comics today want to call the fans this, that, all these terrible phrases, but they have become the evil that Stan Lee said we should try to fight, to all become this one unified thing, to all become worthy of God, or whatever your religious beliefs are. I'm not here to tell you, you have to believe what Stan Lee believed in. But I find it funny, for every person at Marvel that wants to use Stan Lee's death as this crucible for their stupid beliefs. Well, Stan Lee really is like the antithesis of what they believe in, because it was all good and pure from Stan Lee. It wasn't this antagonistic garbage that Marvel puts out. And I want to bring up a point too. Marvel actually was late to the game. If you go on social media or any website and you talk about these memorials for Stan Lee, You know who's getting the most attention? DC Comics. Because DC Comics actually beat Marvel to the punch. DC Comics put out a memorial for Stan Lee that says he changed the way we look at heroes, and modern comics will always be his indelible mark. His infectious enthusiasm reminded us why we all fell in love with the stories in the first place. Excelsior, Stan. Very classy, very perfect. That came out at 2 p.m. Nearly an hour later, Marvel just says, today we pause and reflect with great sadness on the passing of Stan Lee. And that's about it. It's weird, a company that Stan Lee never really worked for. Yes, he had that Imagine If series in the late 90s, early 2000s. But you never think of Stan Lee as a writer who worked for Marvel and DC, not a Frank Miller. No, you think of Stan Lee. Stan Lee is Mr. Marvel Comics. And that just kind of surprises me that what people would consider his rival beat Marvel to the punch in remembering him. So it's just kind of tasteless on all fronts that these people will use the death of Stan Lee, the great Stan Lee, to espouse political rhetoric that really doesn't belong in comics. And I don't mean that their ideas don't belong to have a space on the table, but Spider-Man's not about the gender pay gap or all this stuff. Spider-Man can talk about it, and if it's done well. When these comics stop in the middle of them to preach their politics and stuff, and the story isn't any good, that's where the problem is. Stan Lee had stories about civil rights in his comics, and it felt natural. Go back and read some of the Spider-Mans from about issue 69. I think that's Crisis on Campus. He's able to hide these allegories so well, so tactfully, and these people today are very blunt, and they just do it poorly. Stan Lee was a finely tuned instrument. These people are like a boulder, and you don't use a boulder to, perform a surgery. So those were more of my thoughts on Stan Lee in a much more not rehearsed, that's not the right phrase, but in a much more professional way. It's not an exaggeration for me to say how important Stan Lee is to me, to this channel. Like I told you guys yesterday when we were discussing the first live stream about Stan Lee's passing, I said Stan Lee had a motto that I live by every single day. Every comic is someone's first comic. So I think that everyone's episode or video of World Class Bullshitters is somebody's first episode or video from World Class Bullshitters. So I take that into account. That's why I use certain verbiage, or I try to talk about a certain way to, catch people up. That has always been my belief. Stan Lee was a very consumer-friendly creator. And all I can do is say, Stan, you were the man. Everybody that's a comic book fan loves you. Even the people that are more cynical and want to say, well, he only was responsible for half. Like I said, that 50% is greater than anything these other people have done. You can have these starving artists, these people at Marvel right now that want to tell you how they're changing the world. But until I see The Rock post a tweet about how you impacted his life, or any other celebrity out there saying, you changed my life, your work changed my life, I'm sorry, everybody at Marvel Comics, you're not even a drop in the bucket. Stan Lee was the bucket. You guys are just a puff of air that doesn't even register. So Chano Cyber9 Avila sent in a super chat. Thank you very much, my friend. When Mr. Stan Lee passed, the whole world got quiet. We paid our respects to the one above all. I was introduced to Stan Lee. The way I was introduced to Stan Lee was by the Spider-Man PS1 game and Spider-Man 1. His cameo in the first Spider-Man film was actually going to be a lot better, but I don't think they either filmed it, but they didn't use it for sure. So in the first Spider-Man movie, he's selling sunglasses at the Unity Day Festival, and he just pulls somebody out of the way, like a kid from the rubble from the Green Goblin. Nice, fun little cameo. But originally, and maybe it's on the DVD and I've never looked at it, he goes, hey kids, you want to get these glasses? They're like the ones they wore in the X-Men. And so there was this nice little crossover, this fourth wall breaking, but it just, I guess maybe for legal reasons or whatever, it never took off. But Spider-Man, the game for PS1, fantastic video game, maybe the best Spider-Man game, I don't know. For me, it was my first 3D Spider-Man. I think that was the first 3D Spider-Man game in general, but I got it as soon as it came out. I was at a Kmart and they had a demo disc. and I picked it up. I said, Mom, I got to get this game for Christmas. And I did. I got that game for Christmas. I had just received a PS1, the Mini, and my birthday that year, so my birthday's in October, and we all know when Christmas is. And so I played SmackDown and Tony Hawk, but when I got Spider-Man, that stopped. And it was just so neat to hear Stan Lee's voice, because at that point, 2000, I was already a Stan Lee fan. I would draw every once in a while, but that following year, late 01, early 02, that is when it all kind of just, this avalanche of Stan Lee love really hit me. And I'll watch anything with Stan Lee. I've watched videos about him talking about parkour and that show he had on Sci-Fi, Stan Lee's Superhumans or whatever, where it talks about people with powers, in quotation marks. Just, there was such goodwill towards the guy. And, you know, there will never be another person in comics that has that sort of impact in geek culture. You know, Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory can't do it. And I just used him as an example because he is that show, I hate it. A lot of people like it. But still, there's a divisive group. Nobody from The Walking Dead. Nobody really kind of can do that. Everybody loves Stan Lee from both sides of the aisle, the Marvel, the DC, the Independents. And you see the classiest of people, the classiest of creators, the world-class creators come out to honor Stan Lee. You had Rob Liefeld, who, co-created Deadpool. You had Todd McFarlane, who, is Todd McFarlane, but he created Spawn. And he had the best quote. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, that the greatest superpower Stan Lee ever had was his ability to make you feel better than you truly, or, feel great about yourself. And that kind of thing was true. I never met Stan Lee, but he always had something nice and positive to say about people. And Excelsior and all that stuff. The funny thing is, you always felt like you could do more after listening to Stan Lee talk. He was just awesome. That's all I can say. Let's see. So we had a lot of super chats rolling this morning. Another one from Chain of Cyber 9 Avila. It's the same one, but I'll read it again. It says, when Mr. Stan Lee passed, the whole world got quiet. Almost every celebrity paid their respects to the one above all. I was introduced to Stan Lee by Spider-Man PS1 game, and Spider-Man won the movie. Thank you, Chano Cyber 9 Avila. And since you sent it twice, and here's your third one, I'm going to read it in the voice. Bonesaw is ready! I was really sad when Macho Man Randy Savage died, but I wasn't like this because I like Macho Man. He's a lot of fun, but I didn't really grow up watching him to it like I did with Stan Lee. So rest in peace, Macho Man, as well. One of the greatest! Elizabeth. Commander Cody 17, thank you very much. Stan Lee deserved a Nobel Peace Prize. Sure, but you know what? You know what my favorite Stan Lee moment of the last 10 years is? And I know this might not make everyone happy, but okay, so I have this old computer. I don't know where it is, but I had this picture of Stan Lee because he got a presidential award, and he looked so happy. Like, there's the smile, the public smile of Stan Lee where he's doing a Spider-Man pose and talking to people and stuff, and that's great. We all love that. But the joy that Stan Lee had when he got his presidential medal was just a whole nother level. And I like to remember Stan Lee like that, because no matter what your opinions are on Bush or anything in America back then, Stan Lee was a proud American, and that meant a lot. That generation takes great pride in America. And my grandma was sent to Washington on this honor flight. And she, no matter what she felt about any administration, she took great pride in, going. They served in the military. They both were World War II vets. And that's how I like to remember Stan Lee. So Commander Cody, he got his big award. I suggest you guys check it out. It's him and George W. Bush in 2008. And it's just awesome. I mean, if you want to talk about a great American that really contributed to the popular landscape, Stan Lee is it. The Pui, good morning, Jeff. Good morning to you, the Pui. Thank you very much, my friend. It's always good to see you. Cesario Japan says, rest in peace, Stan Lee, along with Kirby, gave us the world's strongest superhero car, the Fantastic Car, from glorified bathtub to four attached mini planes. Oh, man, it's good to laugh right now. Yeah, the Fantastic Car. Jack Kirby passed away in 1994. Had social media existed back then, I think a lot of creators and creative types would have definitely had a lot of respect and outpouring for Jack Kirby. If you don't know who Jack Kirby is, he was the artist responsible for Fantastic Four, Captain America, The Incredible Hulk, all those things. He actually drew the cover to Amazing Fantasy number 15, which was the first appearance of Spider-Man, but Steve Ditko inked it and designed the suit independently. But yes, Jack Kirby does deserve a lot of respect. Hopefully, well, it's nice too because his name is in, I think, almost every Marvel movie credit, because the dude, his output was ridiculous. For you think all the stuff that Stan Lee did, you got to remember Jack Kirby drew the pages, and that takes way more than writing it. I can write a comic book, in a day, an issue of a story, but it takes you weeks sometimes to get those pages out. But Jack Kirby was doing like 4 books a month, so we're gonna pay some respect to him too. But yeah, Cesare Japan, the Fantastic Car. I can imagine. I think that's what issue number 4 or 5 of Fantastic Four. I can picture it in my head. Chano Cyber9 Avila, thank you very much. Stan Lee made my childhood, Spider-Man and X-Men. That's my childhood too, Spider-Man and X-Men. And the Incredible Hulk. The Hulk was real popular in the 70s and 80s thanks to the TV show, and a lot of that still kind of carried on because Marvel marketed specific characters on a lot of merchandise back in the day. It was always Spider-Man, and it still is to this day. That's their Mickey Mouse. But for a while, it was the Hulk. And you would see Captain America, sometimes the Falcon. It just really depended upon what they were trying to sell and promote. But there was a time when the Hulk was that big of a character. Quentin Daniels, thank you very much for both of your super chats that I'm about to read. First read Stan's comics around the late 80s and early 90s. He made an impact early for me, an Australian. Yeah, Stan Lee, there are no borders for Stan Lee's reach. That dude, everybody can get into the stories. So, yeah, late 80s, early 90s. Right when I was born, you were getting into the Stan Lee stuff. Hell, you may have picked up Marvel Masterworks when they were first off the presses back in 1987. Observer Dude, thank you very much. I'm not an American, but I think the first Spider-Man movie proved a message for hope for Americans after 9/11. It did, Observer Dude. It really did. That's not me agreeing with you. I've said it before, and it's weird, too. Even as a kid, I wasn't like the super patriot, but we all cheered in the theater when they threw the shit at the Green Goblin on the bridge. That was a nice moment. And I remember that, and people were like, yeah! And then they used the song, that 4th of July, which was okay, I guess, but I don't really like Nickelback, but I can tolerate that song. But Spider-Man, I always call it the first post-9/11 movie, because everything was about the attacks, and then Spider-Man was the first big thing that came out, and you just forgot about it. And then Star Wars came out, and then you had Lord of the Rings later on in the year. But it was Spider-Man, and that was the one that really captured everyone's imagination. Drew Anderson, thank you very much. I met Stan at ECCC, and it was the most humble I felt. Deployed the next day. Ooh. Well, I'm glad you made it back safely. Stan Lee. That was my big regret. I had an opportunity to pay to meet him. I really couldn't afford to back then. But man, I kind of wish I would have now. But I do have his autograph on a comic I bought with a certificate of authenticity years ago. I'm not one of those people that would have bought it and resold it. If I had more Stan Lee shit, it would just stay. Maybe get displayed. It would stay in the box where it is. I don't want it to get wrinkled. GrendelFan84, thank you very much. Good morning from Comics Elite. It all goes back to Spider-Man and his amazing friends and the Pride of the X-Men pilot introduction for us. Spider-Man and his amazing friends, I didn't realize that show was out until I was in about the 8th grade, because I only had access to the Spider-Man cartoon without Firestar and Iceman. And then Pride of the X-Men was something I didn't really know. I played the video game in the 90s, but I'm 30, so X-Men came out, 28 years ago at this point? Yeah. No, 24 years ago. Sorry, 24 years ago. 28. I don't know. The point is, I was a little kid, and so only the Jim Lee X-Men stuff existed to me. But I do know Pride of the X-Men, and looking back on it now, it looks good, but the voice work, especially for Wolverine, where he's Australian, funnily enough, so is Hugh Jackman. But yeah, Pride of the X-Men, check it out, folks. It's on YouTube. It's worth a watch. And it's the inspiration for that X-Men arcade game that we all love so much. Oh my god, it's a fantastic game. Celtic Dave, thank you very much. Have you seen Mallrats, the cameo? It's the longest and best cameo. Yes, I have. Dude, I have watched Mallrats countless times. I actually own 2 copies of it on DVD. I have the original one in the purple box, and then I have the 2005 10th Anniversary Edition. And it's funny, on that 10th anniversary edition, like, we'll come back for the 20-year anniversary and do this. And I thought, man, I can wait 10 years. It's been 13 years since, and that edition has not been released. So, Kevin, that's me hitting my arm, pointing to a watch that's not there. Hop to it, buddy. No, but it really is. I still stand by the best Stan Lee cameo as the Excelsior one from Spider-Man 3. You know, I guess one man can make a difference. Enough said. And then he walks away, and Spider-Man just gets this smile on his face. But the one at Mallrats is great, too. I mean, it's funny, it's poignant, it really is great, and it was a nice introduction to Stan Lee for a lot of people. I do love the line about Jagger and him, about who had the most girls. Last time I was up, Stan Lee was so cool. And here's something that I don't know if a lot of people have thought about or even discussed. Stan Lee never felt dated. Even as old as he was, he always felt relevant and, part of popular culture and cool. I mean, how many 95-year-old guys were genuinely cool? Not many, if any. Stan Lee was a cool man. It never felt unnatural for him to talk about popular culture, use popular phrases, use Twitter, stuff like that. Stan Lee just seemed timeless. Most people seem dated. Like when you think of, I don't know, Tom Selleck, you think of the 80s, or you think of Burt Reynolds in the 70s. But Stan Lee, could it be 1961 Stan Lee or 2018 up until yesterday Stan Lee? He just felt cool. He always had his finger on the pulse. And that is what I think his greatest contribution to Marvel was. It always felt important. It felt current. It felt, poignant. It was great. So Stan Lee will be sorely missed here on the channel. There will, I'll do some more Stan Lee readings, and I'll have some fun like that. Now, I do have one more thing I want to talk about with Stan Lee. I was going to do my personal favorite Stan Lee stories, but there was just one problem. They all were Spider-Man. So if you really wanted to hear me talk about countless Spider-Man stories, well, I've done that before, but I can always do that again. But I was over on Looper, and I found this interesting list, and I thought you guys would like to see it. So get your screens ready, because I'm about to show you guys this. And so here is what Looper considers the 10 greatest Stan Lee stories, comics. And I'll give you a couple of ones I like myself. So we had Identity Crisis from Amazing Spider-Man number 600. I read this. This was nice. I also believe this is the issue where Aunt May married J. Jonah Jameson's dad. So that's cool. Speaking of weddings, Bedlam at the Baxter Building from the Fantastic Four Annual number 3, where Stan Lee and Jack Kirby try to get into the wedding of the Fantastic Four, but they're denied. So that's a nice fourth wall breaking. See right here. How about that image? How about that? Imagine them keeping us out, Stan. We'll show them, Jack. Let's get back to the bullpen and start writing the next issue. See, little stuff like that really separated Marvel from DC and any of its competition. Fun little winks and nods at the fans, at the audience. Just little things that say, hey, we know what we are, and we know who you are, and we're glad you're here. And they even put Stan Lee in the movie, and they did that. Sadly, Jack Kirby had passed away, but Stan Lee's the one that tries to get into the wedding in the Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. And opinions aside of that film, you like it, you don't. It's a damn cool scene, and a nice callback to this right here. So Sinister Six, Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 1. This is my favorite Stan Lee Spider-Man story, maybe. It's one of my favorite Spider-Man stories overall. I just love it. It's where he fights the Sinister Six. You guys can read that anywhere you want. It's available, reprints online. It's a great story. And that's Steve Ditko artwork right there. That was something I showed when he passed away over the summer. The Perils and Power, Fantastic Four number 57 through 60. I have never read this one. I know the Galactus trilogy. But again, you should definitely check this out. Stan Lee's characters have a lot of grandeur to them. Something that today's characters just lack. The Good, the Bad, and the Uncanny from Silver Surfer number 4. And that's John Buscema artwork. That's a very iconic cover. That's the guy that I talk about all the time being so great. There we go. The Coming of Galactus, the Galactus trilogy. If This Be Doomsday. Oh my god. I kind of want to stop the show and just read these fucking comics right now. But don't worry, I won't. I got shit to do, but I'll read them later. But yeah, another one I suggest, you guys will like this. The Sky Catches Fire, Galactus is Coming Down, the Silver Surfer's The Herald. I believe Jack Kirby came up with the Silver Surfer stuff. Here we go, Spider-Man No More, Amazing Spider-Man number 50. If you're out there looking at this image and you're thinking, oh man, that's cool looking, I don't know what the story is, yes you do, because this is the comic that is essentially Spider-Man 2 the movie. So if you love Spider-Man 2, if you consider that the greatest superhero movie of all time like I do, or just the greatest Spider-Man film, well, you need to read this, because Stan Lee did it in 1968, right? 67, excuse me. With John Romita. This is my favorite comic book artist. This is my favorite comic book cover. This is a fantastic story, and that thing's been reprinted to the moon and back. So that is very easy to find. That is my #1 most wanted comic. I can't justify spending $1,000 on the book, but my God, one day I will pull the trigger. This Man, This Monster from Fantastic Four number 51. This is a great story as well. I don't read a lot of Fantastic Four, but I sure as shit know this story. I got a reprint a decade ago or something, and Fantastic Four is cool in my book. Side note, I always loved how their covers had all these detailed backgrounds, but they were just colored gray for time's sake, and then the characters had some detail and shading. Dumb point to make, but still, love it. Parable from Silver Surfer number 1 and number 2. This is Moebius's artwork, and I have never read this, but this was definitely talked about a lot in the circles that I hang out with, so I need to add this to my personal list. And then Spider-Man, The Final Chapter. Now, if you're wondering, have you ever heard about this story? Yes, you have. If you've seen Spider-Man Homecoming, there are some elements from Spider-Man, The Final Chapter with that film, especially when the Thing falls on top of him. But this is one of the early iconic Spider-Man moments, maybe the first outside of his origin story. And it's a good story. It's not my favorite Spider-Man story. I'm not going to act like everything was a 10 out of 10. This is probably about a 8, honestly. It's really good. But I do like other Ditko Lee era stories more. Namely, Sinister Six number 1. Or the follow-up issues. This is the Master Planner Saga, as I call it. But there we go. Those are the greatest Stan Lee stories according to Looper. If you guys are comic book fans and you're looking for something to read, those are their recommendations. And I can back those. I can back all of those and tell you guys to check them out. And yes, number 50 was my favorite cover ever, but what's my favorite Spider-Man comic? Oh, my favorite Spider-Man comic is a dumb one that no one here would like. It's like Spider-Man 271, Whatever Happened to Crusher Hogan. Because in the origin story, Spider-Man becomes a wrestler. That's something that the Sam Raimi films put in there. He becomes a wrestler and he fights a guy named Crusher Hogan. And if you can go 3 minutes with him, you win $100 or something like that. Well, Spider-Man beats him, and that's it. He's just written off as a one-time character. And Whatever Happened to Crusher Hogan, you find out that after his loss to Spider-Man, he kind of spiraled down. He now just cleans a gym and he tries to train kids. And some people believe his story. One kid believes his story, and the other ones kind of make fun of him and bully him. And then Spider-Man is fighting some villains, and they just happen to go into this gym because these kids are like in a gang or something like that. And Spider-Man comes to fight the day, and the one kid that believes Crusher Hogan is like, oh my God, you were right, Crusher. Spider-Man came to the rescue. You're his buddy. And Spider-Man thinks for a second. He goes, is that the guy I beat all those years ago? So after the fight, Spider-Man's like, yeah, he's my buddy, this, that, and the other. And everyone respects him, and he kind of just, that's the end of the story. It's a one-off thing, but that is my favorite Spider-Man comic ever. So I gotta say, everyone in the chat's been really respectful. Shout out to all you guys today. Let's give a quick thumbs up to this video if you guys are enjoying it. Good Morning Pop Culture is doing incredibly well. I'd like to keep this show rolling forward. Our friend GrendelFan84 from Comics Elite says, as I'm sure you know, Jeff, the final chapter was drawn first by Ditko, then written by Stan afterwards. Art can tell the story. Yes, it does. That's why I made sure when I talked about Stan Lee and my little prepared speech, Ditko gets his credit too. I will never deny that from Steve Ditko. And to be fair, Stan Lee wrote a deposition for court that says, I've always considered Steve Ditko to be the co-creator of Spider-Man. Now, Steve Ditko took that out of context because Stan Lee was just saying, oh, I've always considered him to be like I've always thought of him to be that. Ditko took the phrase considered and took it as, I thought about allowing him to be the co-creator of Spider-Man. So that was the case for that. But yeah, Grendel Fan 84, I do know that. A lot of the Ditko stuff, towards the end, he would just kind of go off and do his own thing. And sometimes you would get just a guy named Joe comic book, which is the last Ditko issue, and it's not very good. But then, you know, as soon as Ditko left, I think Spider-Man really ramped up to be a little more dramatic, a little more soap opera-ish, but better. I do love those early issues. They're a lot of fun. But I mean, as soon as Ditko left, what's the first thing we get? The Green Goblin saga, where he figures out Spider-Man's identity and all this stuff. And then the cast of Spider-Man becomes bigger. You know, when Ditko was working on the book with Lee, it was Spider-Man, Betty Brant, J. Jonah Jameson, Aunt May, and a couple in Flash Thompson, and a few people from high school. Once we get to this, the Ditko Romita era, or the Lee Romita era, we get, you know, Gwen Stacy gets a bigger role, even though she's in the Ditko era. Mary Jane appears for the first time. They go to the Coffee Bean. They make friends. Randy Robertson, Hobie Brown, all these people start to come into the fray. So when Stan Lee kind of took back the reins, you got these cultists that worship Steve Ditko. I don't. I respect his work, but he's too, I don't know. His objectivist views really turned me off. Not because I disagree with his politics, but because it's like, I just don't enjoy your work. That's all I can say about the Steve Ditko stuff. J. Jonah Jameson is the best Spider-Man character ever made. J. Jonah Jameson is essentially Stan Lee. There's an interview with Stan Lee that says, "Oh, I always wanted to play J. Jonah Jameson if they ever made a movie, but I'm too old now." Yes, Stan was too old, but damn it, we got J.K. Simmons, and he was awesome. That is the type of shit that I really get sad over when I watch Spider-Man 2, because it's no more. And the guy's alive and well and acting, and he could still be J. Jonah Jameson. But Sony's going to go for Ice Cube or some other bullshit just to be different. You should really pull back J. Jonah Jameson, the real one, J.K. Simmons. Not a single negative word would be said about that. People would get so excited. Shano Cyber 9 Avila. I too grew up with Spider-Man. I always identified with the older version. It's funny, Joe Quesada, who I guess he's still editor-in-chief at Marvel, or no, he's something else now, he's still there. He said that kids can't identify with a married Spider-Man. When I started reading Spider-Man, Spider-Man got married in 1987. I was born in 88. I had only known married Spider-Man, and look where I am. To me, that's a counterpoint to Joe Quesada. I grew up with Spider-Man as being married. When Mary Jane had a smoking issue, when she had her miscarriage, I was there for all of it. Not once did I ever not like it. I liked it much more than I do the single Spider-Man with these terribly written characters like the Lady Cop, Watanabe, or Carly Cooper, or all these other stupid characters that they've written in the Dan Slott era. If I could Thanos snap away some Spider-Man books, it would be the entire Dan Slott era, and we would go back to a couple years ago, a decade, when even though One More Day was bad, Brand New Day had promise, but then Dan Slott really ruined it. So there we go. Peter Parker was a heavily bullied kid in high school. Bullied kids don't get married, so they can't relate. Bullshit, believe me. Just because you don't believe that some down-on-his-luck dude could marry a supermodel because he's cool doesn't. You know what? If you can believe he's got superpowers and all this other shit, why can't you believe he's married? That is when I get really angry. But no, Kevin, the SJWs don't have to tarnish Stan Lee's legacy. All of us can use this video and other videos out there that remember his legacy in a positive way. I'm not glossing over Stan Lee to try to be respectful. I'm telling it like it is, from my point of view. Even at most, 50% of something is better than what anyone else has done. So we give Stan Lee his just due, and all the contributions he made, and all the goodwill, and being the face of a company really differentiated him and Marvel from DC. And really, DC's never really beaten Marvel fully in a long, long time. So let's thank Stan Lee once again before we move on. And don't worry about the NPC people. Can I tell you guys something? The greatest power you have over these NPC people and all this other bullshit is to ignore them, because they always eat their own. There will be some crazy person out there that says something stupid, Then they'll start getting a lot of negative attention for attacking Stan Lee, and then they will go away, and these people will begin to eat their own, and they'll just fuck off. So don't really get too angry. You don't have to Hulk smash them. You don't have to want to harm them or do anything. Like I told you guys, just focus on the good stuff. Focus on the fun stuff. Ignore them when they can't. It's like Freddy Krueger. When you don't believe in them anymore, they lose their power. Grendel Fan 84, thank you very much again. Joe Quesada stepped back into the fray when the tail end of the Alonso era was failing horribly with Riri, Carl Manvers, and Nazi Cap. Dude, those are all three terrible things. You know, it's the end of the Alonso era is truly the rise of the diversity in comics era, because that dude really brought Marvel to task, called them on their shit, and really brought channels like mine up. Not him personally, he did give us a shout out once, but really got me inspired to do all sorts of, pieces on this stuff. This attack, this culture war just isn't going to sit well with anybody. And the worst part is they're going to make our popular culture of today irrelevant. It already is irrelevant. It never had become relevant in the first place. There are very few things that keep itself free of this NPC crap. And that's a sign of bad entertainment. But I didn't realize that Joe Quesada stepped back in. The guy's a good artist. I have no critiques on his art. Very good art. Just I don't like his editorial decisions. The Pui, thank you very much. I was bullied in high school, ended up marrying the captain of the cheerleading squad. You see, the Pui, do me a favor. Go write a letter to Joe Quesada and say, hey, Joe, dreams do come true. Shit does happen when you party naked. Sorry, that's a bad Santa reference. I'm actually getting excited for Christmas. No, but the Pui, I get it, man. Just because what you were in high school or grade school doesn't determine or dictate who you are later in life. I mean, look at Flash Thompson. He was the biggest bully, the biggest douchebag, and then he became a soldier, and he eventually became Spider-Man's best friend. That is why I get so angry with modern Spider-Man 2, is the character depth, the development that was created years ago is wiped out. They think it's going to help boost sales, but they're picking the wrong stuff. Create new villains, put Spider-Man in new scenarios, but make him Spider-Man. Much like James Bond and these other characters, don't change them, change the world around them to be more current. And then how do you make the character adapt and become relevant to a point where they're still true to themselves? Spider-Man wasn't true to himself. But, even me, I wasn't, in grade school, I was given shit because I wasn't white. And, when I got to college, now I'm a completely different person. Those people wouldn't recognize me. I mean, I look the same, but I'm not in the same manner that I used to be. So I think Joe Quesada just has a very myopic view of how the world works with people. It's like on Married with Children the other day. They were talking about the geek table. Oh, the geeks still hang out together. Yeah, but the geeks had all the hot women at their table because they had great jobs and this, that, and the other. So those things about life are true. And one of the nicest parts about Peter Parker is he was this genius guy. Like they say in Spider-Man 2, lazy but brilliant. And Spider-Man was never able to just get over the hump. Like, I gotta do this thing, great power, great responsibility. And he would always sacrifice his personal gains for his, from his career. And I really liked that element. And then when Doc Ock took over his brain, he came in and, made him a doctor, and he did all these great things for him. So there was a lot of interesting stuff with Spider-Man over the last couple of years, but not enough to say the era was great overall. So, does anyone have anything else they'd like to say about Stan Lee or Spider-Man or anything like that? Because we're going to talk about another thing, another childhood favorite of a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of nostalgia and feels today with Good Morning Pop Culture. So Turbo Donk clearly loves Spider-Man too. That's okay, Turbo Donk, you have great taste, so I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Random Nerd sad. My school didn't have cheerleaders because I went to an all-boys private high school. So when I played on the football team, there were no girls to cheer us on, sadly. Jeff, it's the geek that makes the stuff for people that used to be bullied. Why? Well, that's why I always get mad about the fake geek culture. Because it's like, you guys didn't really like it until it was cool. And then once it loses its cool, you're going to be gone. And that really hurts something. That's all I can say. My favorite Spider-Man villain is Dr. Octopus, followed closely by the Green Goblin and Kraven the Hunter. I like the characters that are older, not because I'm trying to sound like a Spider-Man purist, but I don't appreciate some of the newer ones because they're not as in-depth. I even like some basic ones like Shocker and Scorpion for what they are. Oh, Cesaria Japan, thank you very much for this good memory. Stan gave us Stripperella and several manga. I do remember Stan Lee present Stripperella. Playboy Cutie 0069. Kid Rock sang the theme song because I think Pamela Anderson and him were dating. She's the voice of Stripperella. This was on Spike TV, TV for Men. I think that was at the launch of what Spike TV was, and Stan Lee was there too. I love it. I love the dude, man. He wasn't about just kiddie entertainment. He was just about entertainment. Sometimes it got a little naughty or risque, but Stan Lee was there, and he was cool. Like I said earlier, he was cool. He never felt like an old dude like your grandpa. No, Stan Lee. He could hang out with anybody. He looked he looked in the right place with Chris Hemsworth or any of these young stars. It just, Stan Lee and this person. Grendelfan84, thank you very much. Stan made everyone welcome with Marvel. He did. Everybody had a character that they could identify with. Everyone had a place. Marvel, the funny thing is, people want to talk about these diverse workplaces. Marvel had people. They had women drawing comics that we don't talk about today because it's not cool and hip. They had Stan Lee was Jewish as well as his brother and a lot of people at Marvel. They had comic books were always kind of diverse ethnically in the creation process, and they had black creators back in the day too. There was one guy that worked on a lot of books. His name escapes me right now. I just was reading about him the other day. But, this stuff that Marvel was trying to push is, we're so progressive, we're doing these great, wonderful things. Guys, they did it 50 years ago. People can vote, people can do this, people can get married from different races and different religions. That battle's over and won. Why don't we look forward to the future to, create the next great thing, to capture the imaginations of people? That's the thing. This will be my final point about Stan Lee. He created stuff that made you think, that made you hope, that believed in the future. Today, we don't have that. It's just a constant reminder of the dour, garbage culture that we live in. George Lucas, dreamer, imagination off the charts. Stan Lee. Ditko was different, but still had imagination and visually represented that well. But when you look at the great storytellers, the Walt Disneys, Stan Lee is right up there with him. Stan Lee, I'll go out and say it was better than Walt Disney. Even on Walt Disney's best day, Stan Lee created just as much, didn't have as much money behind it, but the Marvel characters will be more relevant than Goofy and Minnie and Pluto and all these other retarded characters for much longer. Mickey Mouse represents a dark, evil corporation that sadly owns Spider-Man and his amazing friends. But those characters have had decades and decades of pre-Disney time on their hands, and those characters will always be remembered as the Marvel characters, the Marvel superheroes. And while he didn't do it all himself, one man will be remembered as the godfather, the grandfather, the high father of all Marvel comics, and that man is Stan Lee. So remember, folks, don't really worry about attacking these crazy assholes on social media to defend Stan Lee. Believe me, millions of other people are going to put them in their place by ignoring them and telling them to know their roles and shut their mouths. But this will always be a sad time now. I'll always remember November 12th, 2018 was the day Stan Lee died. And countless people will always remember that day as well. So hopefully you guys take a minute to look at some old Stan Lee stuff, have some fun, and remember the great output and the creative genius that was Stan Lee. Oh, wow, that went an hour all about Stan Lee. I don't even think that was enough. The guy deserved 5 hours, but I think I said everything I wanted to say. And if you guys have more to say about Stan Lee, if you're catching up, make sure you jump in on that, because I will always talk about Stan Lee. Tonight on the High Council, if you got stuff you want to say about Stan Lee, make sure you guys bring it. It'll be a fun night. I have a couple questions for Ethan, who's met Stan Lee. So, Maybe he has a different outlook on his death and how people used him at the end of his life, and it's sad. I've never been one to approve of that. But I look back and I try to remember the good things. Like when Watchmen, the older you get, you only remember the good times. And that is that is the one thing I think I take from Watchmen more than anything else. Not, the greater humanistic things from Dr. Manhattan or this or that or the political stuff. Just what Silk Spectre 1 says. The older you get, you only remember the good times. So, yeah, everyone press F to pay your respects to Stan Lee, the greatest of all time. So, what you're looking at right now well, everybody knows what the fuck Toy Story is. If you watch this channel, you know Buzz Lightyear, Woody, Jesse, and Spork. Okay, I don't know Spork either. But thank you for the tired shred of Fs rolling in. People are showing their respects. Shout out to you guys, seriously. It's funny how people want to lump this channel as this terrible thing. They're just too dumb to pay attention. But I gotta say, our fans are top-notch. You guys put the class in world class. So thank you to everyone who's been sticking with us this morning and being respectful about all that stuff. I appreciate that. So, Harrison Ford. Welcome back to my basement, buddy. So, while this is titled The Stan Lee Show, this is Good Morning Pop Culture first and foremost. So, let's talk about some other things in the world of pop culture. Yesterday, the teaser trailer for Toy Story 4 dropped, and it was okay. I don't really have too much, I don't really have any negative things to say about Toy Story the way I do about Disney proper. Toy Story 1, I loved it as a kid. 2, I loved the best. And then 3, I have problems with it, but it is sad. When I saw this trailer, the first thing I thought is, what is the moment they're going to try to make us cry in? Our friend Quentin Daniels, thank you very much again. Stan Lee gave us all hope. New comics don't do that now. Not even close. My fave comic, X-Men, Hulk, and Spider-Man. Excelsior Stan Lee, the one above all. Yes, one above all. God, I miss Stan Lee. I'm not even going to deny it. I never got to meet him, like I said, but it's sad. But his stuff, man, you'll never have anyone be that prolific again, no matter what. I don't care who you think is cool or fun. Here's the thing. You got to understand humanity and get it first. You got to be a great writer first. You can be awesome and cool, but you got to have the chops, the quiet time, the introspective looks, the ability to take your thoughts and to articulate them well. Those are the things that are required to make the next Stan Lee. So Quentin, new comics don't inspire hope. No, that's why Avengers works and the Marvel movies work now, because entertainment that inspires hope keeps you excited outside of the theater. I mean, fuck, it's been 6 years. The excitement I felt leaving that theater in 2012 has stuck with me so many years. So you need to inspire that hope. Star Wars lost that years ago. So many things. DC should have it. I mean, Superman should be the thing that you leave with a smile on your face. When Christopher Reeve waves to the camera, you're like, oh man, cool, Superman saved the day. I'm ready to go off and fight my own adventures. Now he fucking dies in the movie, and the color palette is gray and his suit looks black. You took away hope. The S on his chest stands for hope. The movie has none of it. None of it. The Grand Inquisitor, thank you very much, my friend. I hope all the NPCs crapping on Stan Lee choke on their lunch and their anus grows taste buds. Especially if they work at Marvel. People remember all the social media garbage that goes on. And, Stan Lee is not the right time to make a political message, ever. He could be dead a decade, it still won't be the right time. You can make Stan Lee jokes, this and that, Excelsior here and there, but you don't really, it'll just never be the right time to grave Stan, to elevate your stance on an opinion or a view. Grand Inquisitor, I got you, man. It took me a second. I was like, anus? Oh, okay. So back to this Toy Story 4. God, Toy Story 4. I never thought there would be 4 Toy Stories. Shit, I didn't think there would be more than one. Because look it. I was a kid. I was really into Power Rangers. There was something about the design of Buzz Lightyear that captured my imagination. And I'll never forget being a kid. My mom went on vacation. She went on vacation, or she got remarried or something. My grandma watched me. And she took me to Toys R Us. My mom left money for food, and she left money to get a toy. And my grandma said, well, your mother left you, you could get like a $10 toy, but she said we could go to this restaurant to eat. But my grandma goes, would you rather buy a toy and then just eat at home? And I said, yeah. So she let me get Buzz Lightyear, the big Buzz Lightyear, the first Thinkway Toys Buzz Lightyear. And man, was that a lot of fun. And I got to see the movie, which was rare back in the day. And I just went and I got to see Toy Story, and it was really a lot of fun. This was, like I said, right after Power Rangers, before Star Wars. So 95 was my Toy Story, almost into Star Wars thing. But once I got into Star Wars, man, like I talked about being into Spider-Man comics and stuff, that was just something that, grabbed me. But for a short period of time, Toy Story grabbed me like that. And I had the tape, and I had all these wonderful things. And I look back at Toy Story, and I get that good feeling like, oh man, Toy Story made me so happy. I had the game, I had this, I had that. I watched the movie fucking countless times. I've probably seen Toy Story, the first one, 50 times, and that's being conservative. I would watch it, rewind it, watch it, rewind it. Couldn't get enough. I got older, and Toy Story 2 was still good. I was, 11 years old? So I still enjoyed it. My mom, again, took me to see it. I've seen every Toy Story in theaters. And then we get to Toy Story 3, and I'm an adult. I'm, what is that, 2011? So I'm 22, going on 23. And it really hits me, it rubs me the wrong way. I didn't like the message of, you have to grow up, give your toys away, this, that, and the other. I know it sounds weird as an adult saying that shit, but you don't. I don't think you should ever give away that stuff. Maybe you could pass it on to your kids or something like that. But I hated the message of that movie. To truly grow up, you have to give away what made you a child. I think that is indicative of a bigger problem. If you take that phrase, what I said, to grow up, you have to give away what you had as a child. Well, you also give away your imagination, your outlook on life, your innocence. I don't think you should ever really give that away. You can be an adult, you can be a parent, you can be all these things, but don't become overly cynical, because once you do become overly cynical, you truly lose what makes you a human. And I think Toy Story 3 became cynical. It became a message that I don't think Disney should promote. These movies, yeah, they say they're first and foremost for children, these Pixar movies, but they always do have some depth. And I'm interested to see where they go with number 4 and this Spork-like character, but I don't have the same level of excitement without Andy, without this, with that. I really don't care about that little girl and how she's going to play with Buzz and Woody. I hate to say it, I'd watch a Toy Story movie without any adults or any people in it whatsoever. I'm more interested, not even in the dynamic of them having to hide from being caught by humanity, but just what they do. And no matter how old I get, no matter how different I become or change, still, man, looking at Buzz Lightyear. The other night, I've been looking for this Buzz Lightyear from Thinkway Toys. It comes in a spaceship box. It was like $60 when it came out, and I couldn't find it for under like $300. And the messed up part is I could have bought it at Toys R Us's closing, and the one day I remembered to buy it, it had already sold. But I wanted it for years and years and years. I still wanted it as an adult, because I was one of those kids, I wanted my shit to look just like the movie. And the Buzz Lightyear that I had as a kid, there was no equivalent. It didn't have the purple tips on the fingers. It didn't say Space Ranger over the blue part in his chest. The wings didn't fully expand. All these things. I was a stickler for making it look like the real thing. And I still want that damn toy. If I ever go to a toy convention and I find it for like $100, I will buy it. I am not changing my stance on Disney, Star Wars, or how I feel about them as a company. But man, Buzz Lightyear, there's just something about that. It's the green happiness. That with the shit. This is a very happy episode. It's like the shit I love. Wait till we talk about Pokemon. Believe me, this is an episode of where it's like, oh man, this is stuff I like that's not Star Wars and not Beverly Hills Cop or James Bond. Things that don't really get talked about too much on the channel, but there is a spot in my heart for all of them. They should have had Toy Story the college years. I'll be honest. I took toys to college. I still had women. So it's not like you can't go to college and have fun. I'll never forget the girl I ended up dating for a while. She's like, "Do you have more than these? Do you have any more of these dolls?" She's talking about my Indiana Jones figures. I just laughed it off and, everything still went well. Shit, that Christmas, she bought me a damn doll. So, I mean, I don't know why people think, giving up toys is a passage of adulthood. If anything, more adults buy toys than kids. Look at Star Wars, look at Marvel. Marvel's like the #1 brand right now, and for God's sakes, it's adult men buying these Marvel characters. How many little kids are nostalgic for Jim Lee Cyclops? Not many. But how many adults are going out to buy them? Enough to where it raises the price to $60. Let's see. Thank you, Kato Roan. I appreciate that very much. That's a very nice compliment. Jeff, even as adults, there are still children in us. Why would we enjoy the simplest of joys or anything? Oh, sorry, let me read that. Jeff, even as adults, there is still a child in us. How would we enjoy the simplest of joys or anything in life without being a child to a degree? At least in my opinion. Yeah. Look at Christmas. I don't care how cynical you can be. There is a point where you're like, man, it's Christmas, family. I have a good memory or two. I have a great memory. I'm going to go out of my way to produce my 25th anniversary best Christmas of my life video. I think I even found some pictures of it not too long ago so you can see what my grandma's house looked like and me 25 years ago as a kid. But man, some of that childlike wonder really, really, really is necessary. For as shitty as stuff gets today, the childlike wonder that you find, it just helps. Sometimes it helps you just get through the day. Sometimes it helps you get through this difficult shit. Sometimes, like my mom, she goes, man, I remember when I was young, this, that, and the other. But sometimes it just helps you get through it. So I actually worked with Jim Hanks on a shoot last month. He does the voice of Woody and all the merchandise. Nice guy and his family is great. I thought somebody did a sound-alike for Buzz Lightyear, but I didn't know they did it for Woody too. That was pretty cool. That's pretty cool, man. I didn't know that, Justin. If you ever have any more stories that you want to tell, you can just email them to me, worldclassbs@mail.com, and I'd love to check them out. I love when people share stuff like that. So let's see. Where are we at, this Toy Story thing? Yeah, I'm excited enough about it that I'll give it a shot, but I'm not excited to a point where it's like I'm blindly going to love... Like, I like Incredibles. I didn't see Incredibles 2. And Toy Story 4, I don't know, man. I feel like it's going to be rife with 2018 politics instead of the fun that the other three, to a degree, had. I never want to get more serious in Toy Story than the time when they're in the furnace and they look at each other and they accept that they're going to die. Let's see. Those who don't allow some childlike wonder in their life are the most immature because you get nihilists of people trying way too hard to be adult. It's funny. Every time I or someone else uses the phrase nihilist or nihilism, I think of the Big Lebowski, and I think of, we're going to cut off your Johnson, Lebowski. I fucking love that movie. God damn it. That is some fun. Not childlike wonder or childlike fun, but that is just pure, unadulterated, a good time. Big Lebowski. Oh, man. I might watch that soon. When you grow up, your heart dies. The Breakfast Club. I love The Breakfast Club, too. For anyone that watches, or, you know what? I will take that back. For people that report on The Breakfast Club or anything like that, a lot of those people will say that The Breakfast Club is about a group of white people, and then they just throw it out the window. But The Breakfast Club is a perennial favorite because no matter what color you are, what economic background you're in, you have a way to relate to The Breakfast Club. It's one of those movies that really, really is incredibly important. And I don't like the idea of people dumping on it or remaking it because you think it needs to be more inclusive for a 2018 setting. It doesn't matter if it's Anthony Michael Hall, Emilio Estevez, Ali Sheedy, Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald, Paul Gleason, just a bunch of white people. The point about that movie is it's about the classes in high school, the sex, the cliques. Those sorts of things still exist to this day, no matter what economic setting, no matter what racial setting you're in. You relate to it. You know, the jock whose dad pushes them, the kid who has all the money but their parents aren't really there, the one whose parents abuse them, the one whose parents pushes them, the one whose parents ignore them because they think they're weird. That has applied to everybody, all 366 people in the chat right now. That works and applies to everyone out there. Those types of things are really impactful and don't ever need to be remade. Sometimes there's movie magic, and that is that. Chano Cyber 9 Avila, thank you very much. I'd pay extra to see my Turbo Man doll. Oh man, I love Turbo Man. It's Turbo time. I'm not gonna try to do a fucking voice. I've only had 2 cups of coffee and not a lot to eat. Jingle All the Way is a very guilty pleasure for Christmas. Press 1 if you would watch Christmas movies with us here on the channel. I don't know why I'm excited for the holidays this year. Probably, like I said, because I'm helping my grandma plan it. But I don't know, I'm very happy. For all I think, let me get serious for a moment. Hear me out. For a lot of those people, the NPC, SJW people that bitch online, they're very unhappy people. I'm a happy guy. I got tens of thousands of people that listen to me talk every day. Things are going good. I'm saving up. I'm doing a comic. I had a huge success. That is why I have the outlook I have. And, even though maybe about 400 to 500 people show up for this show every day, you're all happy to be here too. And I think that's why a lot of these SJW NPC people are very unhappy. They're unhappy, and that's why they do what they do. They want everyone to be as unhappy as they are. Company was it Misery Loves Company. By the way, I wasn't doing Christmas movies until December. I'm not going to do them this week. I got shit to do. I got Die Hards to watch, no matter what time of year it is. Die Hard's perfect. No, but we'll do a Twitter poll, and I'll let you guys vote, and we'll make it happen. We're gonna do Die Hard. We're gonna do Vacation. We're gonna do A Christmas Story, and we're gonna do Bad Santa for sure. And we'll do Ernest Saves Christmas for Kendo. But we will do other ones that you guys would like. And if you're a patron and you want to get involved on those, you know how to contact us. Not enough people are using their patron privileges. I'd really like to have some more on. We had our military stream the other night. Fantastic time. Shout out to all you guys. I hope you had a nice Veterans Day off and had your free steak and your free desserts and stuff. You guys worked hard for it. But I do want to do, like I said, more community-based stuff towards the end of the year into next year and keep it moving forward. So that's the time. Can those without a Twitter vote? Kevathar, yeah, I will put up a poll here on Facebook. Or not, I'll put it on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. There we go. And I'll have Kendo crunch the numbers. So that way everybody that consumes us has a way to vote. I want to make sure that you guys have a voice. Yeah, Bad Santa's the shit. That's going to be amazing. Trading Places can happen too. Home Alone. You know what's funny? I was cleaning this office earlier in the year to put up the desk, and I found a copy of Home Alone I had on DVD. Brand new in the wrapper. I didn't know I owned Home Alone. I do like that movie, though. A lot. Watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles during Thanksgiving, Jeff. You know, it's funny you brought that up. I had said this yesterday on the show, and I'm bringing it up again. So episode 150 will be technically on Thanksgiving, and I don't really want to put it out on Thanksgiving because no one's going to watch it. It's going to really hurt it. So the other bullshitters and I are going to get together, and we're going to record something that goes up on Thanksgiving Day. Might be a commentary about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and John Candy. How's that? It was going to be Spider-Man, but I'm thinking I might do something with Spider-Man over the weekend in memory of Stan Lee to talk about it. Shit, I might go pick up the game and we'll live stream that, and we'll have a Stan Lee Saturday night type of thing. Why not? It's fun. Jim Carrey Grinch. I'll tell you this. The Grinch is going to be watched, the cartoon one for sure. Kendo better not fudge the numbers. He won't. Worst case scenario, we watch every movie you guys suggest. So I see a lot of talk about Detective Pikachu. Now, I actually prepared a little bit of discussion about this because I thought this was going to suck, to be honest. I was like, this looks retarded. And then I saw the trailer, and I'm actually going to see this movie. Not because I all of a sudden have this soft spot for Pokemon, but because I saw the trailer and I thought, I know Pokemon. I grew up with it. this actually seems to capture the spirit of Pokemon. So this is Detective Pikachu right here. And that is a surprise that I would see this and go, I kind of like this. That's all I can say. Man, here we go. So first, I'll be honest, I thought, what the hell is this? Why would you make this movie? I wanted to be like, this is stupid and dumb and I hate it. I watched it and I went, I like this trailer. Really, I do. I really do. The kid from the Get Down is pretty good. I like him as an actor. Ken Watanabe's in there. And then Ryan Reynolds is the voice of Pikachu. And that surprised me. I thought it should have been Danny DeVito, like a lot of people said, but the Ryan Reynolds voice works, and I enjoy the shit out of it. Now, I've been a Pokemon fan since it kind of took off in America, the cartoon, that is. The games were out, 96? I didn't have a Game Boy until 1999. I got a Game Boy Color because my mom used to be a bartender, and she would bring me home, I don't know, a couple dollars each night out of her tips and say, I'm going to give you this money, but you have to save it. So I saved it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And she used to bring it, she gave me a Crown Royal bag, a big Crown Royal bag, and she'd put money in it. And I couldn't touch it, couldn't take it to school. I mean, I was in grade school. What did I need to take dollars for? My lunch was packed from home. So I just had this drawer full of money in a Crown Royal bag. And one day, I'll never forget, it was the day I went and saw Star Wars Episode 1 with my grandma. So she takes me to see this movie at 10 in the morning, early. And it was the day Austin Powers came out, number 2, so it was June of 99. And we go back to the house to pick up my mom to go to lunch, and I get this Game Boy Color. I was like, Mom, can I buy a Game Boy Color? She goes, let's see how much you have saved. I had like 200 and something bucks. And she's like, you can buy whatever you want with this. I already had a Nintendo 64. I already had a PlayStation, and the Dreamcast wasn't really interesting to me, and it wouldn't be out for many, many months. So I get this Game Boy, I get Zelda, and I'm having a great time. But in the meantime, I had started to watch the Pokemon show. I had started to, I had a friend named Brandon. We actually became friends over Nintendo Power. I'll never forget this. He was my best friend in grade school. We used to play video games. He would come over. We would stay up for 24 hours straight on the weekends playing Nintendo 64. But later on that year, we all got into the Pokemon handheld game. So this would have been 1999. So Pokemon Yellow, I'll never forget. My birthday of 1999, so my 11th birthday, my mom let me have a party. And I know this sounds dumb, but instead of having a ton of kids come over like I could have, I had a sleepover with about 4 to 5 people so we could all play Nintendo 64 and not really have to give up the controller. But I'll never forget that day I got Pokemon Yellow. And I had already been a fan of the show, and I had already been collecting some of the cards, but that kind of got me into the world of Pokemon. Now, I don't really talk about my interest in the show because I don't have an interest anymore. That new one, that Pokemon game with Eevee for the Switch and Pikachu, looks interesting, but since you can't really battle other people or battle wild Pokemon and stuff, I'm not really that excited. But I got into this shit and I played it heavily, like really heavily. Pokemon Yellow, I used to walk around and talk to the Pikachu. I ended up getting Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Stadium. And the cards were fun. I have all the original cards. I look back positively on the cards because it was something my mom and I did. She was like, I'm going to get you all of these cards. And as you guys know that collected it, you could get booster packs or you could get decks. I never played a single game of the card game, but damn it, I collected the shit out of these. And we used to go to Toys R Us and everywhere, Walmart, bookstores to try to collect them. And you couldn't get them. They were really rare. So Christmas 99, my mom gets me the Pokemon. She goes to this place, it's Borders Books. I didn't know it. But she found them, like a lot of them. And she had them hidden in the house. I didn't know where they were. But every day on the 12 days of Christmas, she'd bring me a new Pokemon card pack to open up. The blue ones with the Charizard, Venusaur, and Blastoise or whatever on them. And those were cool. I'd get them, some days you'd get a good one, some days you wouldn't. But I remember one day, she's like, you can open 2. And I got a Mewtwo in one pack. And then in another pack, I got the Charizard, which was the rarest card. And I was freaking out. You should have seen me. And I also went and saw the movies in theater. I had the soundtrack. That Christmas as well, my aunt bought me a Pokedex. It was like the #1 toy I wanted. And she gave me a box with a sweatshirt in it. I was like, oh, thanks, Aunt Pat. And then she's like, lift up the shirt. And underneath it was the Pokedex, and I freaked out. I was like, oh my god, I got the toy I wanted for Christmas. Awesome time. And then I found wrestling, and I stopped watching Pokemon whatsoever. I would still collect the cards to try to finish the deck. My mom was more into it than I was at that point. But I really, for as dedicated as I was to Pokemon, much like Toy Story, something cooler came, and I left it. I ditched it real quick. But I didn't throw away any of my toys or the cards or the books. I still have all that stuff in a closet somewhere. So my feeling towards Pokemon has definitely changed over the years. I didn't get into silver and gold. Once they switched, like the Power Rangers, once you introduce different versions or new things, I don't care. I like the original ones, and then I move on myself. So when I saw this trailer, I thought that was it. I was like, I'm going to watch it for the show, to react to it. And I saw the trailer. I saw Pikachu and Doduo and Charmander and all these things. I went, okay, this is kind of cool. I wasn't getting that nostalgia feel. See, that's the thing. This trailer appealed to me, but not on the nostalgia, heart pulls. What happened was I watched it and I went, this is kind of compelling. I like these actors. This seems really, really fun. So I watched it and I was like, wow, I'm interested. I'm in. I'm going to watch this movie. Not just for the channel, but for myself. And it was a good feeling. Not because of nostalgia, but because they're adapting a video game movie in a way that I'm genuinely excited for. I think the next wave of big entertainment properties, and I said this the other day before this trailer came out yesterday, somebody said, what do you think will come after the superhero movies, or what do you think will help beat Disney? And I said video game movies. And, people didn't really pay attention or react. But I firmly believe that video game adaptations are the next wave of mineable franchises. Hear me out. The Mario Brothers movie is shit. I saw it when it was new. Didn't like it back then. Resident Evil's okay. I thoroughly enjoy the first Mortal Kombat. It may not be the greatest movie, and it's not, but it's better than Street Fighter and almost any other comic book or video game movie. Mortal Kombat's the best one. It's the gold standard. Maybe it's best of 7 out of 10, but I enjoy the shit out of that movie. It's basically Enter the Dragon meets Mortal Kombat on a PG-13 rating, but I'll watch it any day of the week. Seriously. If you ever met me and you said, hey, Jeff, you want to watch Mortal Kombat and have a beer? I'm going to say yes. Hell, it's Star Wars Celebration. Maybe we'll find a big TV and we'll do it. But this Pokemon movie got me thinking that, realistically, this could be the next wave. If Detective Pikachu, which is a big-budget film with big-named actors, both voices and acting, if this takes off, well, we already have the Castlevania adaptation on Netflix, which was fantastic. There's also a rumor that the same crew is going to do Legend of Zelda. I might cry nerd tears. Okay, I won't cry nerd tears, but I will watch it like... I would get, I would make the day for that. When that hits at midnight, we will watch it. I will watch it. I'll react. We'll do a Zelda 24-hour marathon or some shit. Stream, games, everything. I don't care what Nintendo says. But this Detective Pikachu movie combined with those and the Imagine Entertainment Mario movie, the people that make Despicable Me are making a Super Mario film, I stand by the beliefs that that is the next thing. Comic book movies are great. Have been great, but they're nearing an end. You're going to start to see, like, Wreck-It Ralph really opened the doors to the idea of CGI cartoon video game movies. I mean, the same technology that makes the games will now make the movies. And I'm actually excited to think, for the first time ever, you're going to have a cartoon movie and then a video game that looks just like the movie. Even though the Switch is a very weak system in comparison to other consoles, the graphics look good for Mario and Zelda and all these things. Now imagine when the Mario movie comes out and it looks like Despicable Me, and the next Nintendo can look just like that. That's going to be a really cool crossover synergy thing. And knowing Nintendo, there's going to be all kinds of innovative ways, hell, to cross-promote the movie, to play levels from the movie, to do this. I mean, it could be the most truest to form video game movie ever. Mario kind of was the signal of, like, the worst, and then this new one could be the signal for the best. And I find that exciting, and I hang my hat on that is the next wave. Captain Marvel and Avengers, and then we're kind of done. DC, sorry guys, you're a little too late to the party. You showed up drunk, you shit the bed, you came back the next day to apologize, but the party's over and done with. Marvel went home with the prom queen, you're gonna go home with nobody. Just your right and your left hand to take care of you. But in the chat, I'm really interested to hear what you guys think about video game adaptations. Do you think they are the next wave, or do you think I'm wrong? Or do you think, let's say you think they are the next wave. What would you like to see? If we're going to do this Castlevania Legend of Zelda thing, I'm for it. I want more Legend of Zelda stuff. I know people think, but that takes away the innovation. I don't think so. The story of Zelda is so great and powerful that if you do it right, you could make an Ocarina of Time film that could win an Oscar for visuals, for storytelling. It just depends on how the people who are behind it, the passionate people behind these projects, make them work. That is why Sam Raimi's Spider-Man captures the imagination, the spirit, and the heart of Spider-Man, but the Mark Webb and whoever directed the Spider-Man Homecoming one doesn't. You know, the Mark Webb ones feel like corporately produced commercials. Sam Raimi, lifelong Spider-Man fan, captured the heart. All you got to do is get these people that are these talented artists, either visually or in storytelling aspects, that want to create these video game movies. And those things will take off and flourish, because everybody wants interactive experiences, VR, this, that. If you can cross over an interactive experience from your smartphone to a home console to a movie theater screen and create some kind of event, well, then you are set as an entertainment company. And I think Nintendo has countless fantastic IPs that can be mined for quality films. Imagine a hard sci-fi Metroid movie without Brie Larson. That shit will get everybody ready, because you'll have these NPC people that go, ooh, a woman doing this. Okay, fine. It's not like we had Ripley in Aliens or Princess Leia 40 years ago, but okay, you get your point. And you'll have these things. You can do a Star Fox movie. You could do all of these fantastic things. Hell, you could create the Nintendo Cinematic Universe if you had to. I hope not. I wouldn't want that. That to me is bad. Unless it culminates with a Super Smash Bros. Movie, much like the Avengers. But there's this rumored Metal Gear Solid movie. There's all these things, these elements that can be brought to film. Because video games are about user experience, but you can take those stories and string them together. How many millions of views do the cutscenes have of people, or Let's Plays? Those are fucking popular. That is like watching a movie. You don't get when people use the argument, oh, well, video game movies don't work because the user experience isn't there. Then why are Let's Plays a thing? Because those aren't your experiences. Those are somebody else's, much like a movie. Somebody else makes the decision. So why not have a group of people make the decision, and then it's like a big Let's Play for 1 million people to watch? I like the concept. I'm really surprised how quick Detective Pikachu has sold me on this. So we had 2 super chats rolling while I was talking about Pokemon. First off, Alpha Terranima, thank you very much for everything. Did you hear about the Monster Hunter movie and how Jovovich is already shitting on people for not liking how it looks? I have not. Now, it's funny. Every time somebody says Monster Hunter, I think of Monster Rancher, which was like a cheap Pokemon ripoff with the yellow eyeball guy. Press 1 if you remember that. I do. I remember that, but I didn't know there's a Monster Hunter movie, because I've never played a Monster Hunter game. Sorry. I've also never played through a Kingdom Hearts all the way, but I've played the first one when it was new. Didn't dislike it. Maybe I'll get the new one. I just need more hard drive space on this PlayStation. I really do. But Alpha Terranima, Mila Jovovich doesn't have any room to shit on people because she made Resident Evil, all of them. And those are dumb movies. But to me, those are a relic of the past in terms of video game adaptations. I mean, they came out 16 years ago with Resident Evil #1, and it's a franchise that has had a female lead, an action star. Those are, varying degrees of success. The thing is, every time one of these SJW NPC people want to complain about, people are sexist for not seeing these movies. No, people will go see them if they're good. We're past the point of women not being able to do something. Women can do it. That's fine. Just make it good. We hold the guys to the same standard. Nobody went and saw, Death Wish, the remake, but everybody and their grandma saw John Wick. It's not about a male thing. It's about a quality story that blows people's minds. David Hervey, thank you very much. Man, you missed out on the gold and silver era of Pokemon, one of my favorite games of the series. But did you like the Assassin's Creed movie? Did not see that at all. I don't like Assassin's Creed. I think I have... The reason I told you my Pokemon history, David, as well as everyone out there, the reason I told you that is to show you why I'm interested in this movie. It kind of captured what I enjoyed about Pokemon. You know, I heard the little Pokemon theme, the original, that do. That was neat. I liked the world. It looked very like a noir Blade Runner type of thing. But I have to like the franchise. Like Castlevania. I loved that show. I liked Castlevania. It was kind of hard as a kid, but I enjoyed it. The same thing with Zelda. I love Zelda. Zelda is my second favorite franchise. My favorite's Grand Theft Auto. The older I get, I mean, sometimes I need to just blow off some steam and have some fun, and Grand Theft Auto is my way to do that. But the Assassin's Creed movies, I own Assassin's Creed Black Flag. It was my launch title for the PS4. I was impressed by the graphics. I played it for about, I don't know, a couple weeks. I also had Killzone to play. Loved Killzone. I like online shooters. They're a guilty pleasure of mine. But I didn't see the movie just on principle. Michael Fassbender's a good actor. Fantastic actor, if you will. I like Marion Cotillard, but I just didn't go see that movie. Not even because it was video game based, just because it's Assassin's Creed. If they were to do a, what's the game franchise I got on my shelf? Ooh, all my old games are covered up. Metal Gear Solid, the movie, I'm there day one. I don't care what they adapt. Hopefully it's part one. Hell, you could do Metal Gear Solid 5, the movie, and have that 80s nostalgia music, but have it set in the Middle East and stuff. Those kinds, see, Kojima and the visionary creators, Miyamoto, they get it. They can tell these stories or create these gameplay mechanics that really stand the test of time. And it takes forever to get these games out, but when you get it, damn it, you know what you're going to get. Now, I know I missed out on the Pokemon Gold and Silver era. To be fair, I've talked about this on the past. When we got Satellite as a kid, we got a Blockbuster card for one free rental every week for a year. And once I rented a Pokemon Gold, and that was about it. I rented it, I took it back. Ho-Oh and Lugia and all those mythical Pokemon, Pichu, the new evolutions, they just never really captured my imagination. The first one was so new to me and different and novel, and it caught on. I actually had a lot of friends around Pokemon. I had, you go to these Pokemon. I used to go to the Pokemon League at Toys R Us every Tuesday night, I think. That's why I got a scar on my leg. You guys remember Razor scooters? I'll never forget. Here's a funny story about me that you can laugh at in person. So one day at Pokemon League, I wanted to go to get my free badge, which I did, but they had Razor scooters in the store. So I was riding around on a Razor scooter, and somebody had there were toys and shit in the road or on the aisle, and I rolled over a rubber snake. I almost tripped. I caught myself with my other foot, and this Razor scooter whipped around, and the thing that adjusted the height of the arm where you held it hit me in the leg, and my leg exploded in blood. The messed up part is my mom was walking down the aisle and saw the whole thing, and my leg was just spurting blood out, and she's freaking out, and it was gross. I have no feeling in my leg there to this day. But, yeah, it was at Pokemon League. Pokemon League did it for me, man. I like the Silent Hill movie a lot. I saw that Spring Break 2009. My buddy Toph and I, we went... so, in college, I didn't really go off to, vacation spring break where, Panama City or all these other places. I would go out of town, but just to people's houses. So my buddy Toph, his name's Chris, but Christopher Toph, we went to his house in Virginia 2 years in a row. And oh my God, his parents, we went down, we snuck beer, and it was a good time. But one afternoon we were watching something on demand, and we watched Silent Hill, and it was pretty decent, especially when the lady was in the church and the barbed wire went up her and ripped her in half. That was my shit right there. That was my shit. Mewtwo for the win. Mewtwo is one of my favorite Pokemon. That's why I'm excited for Smash Bros. Ultimate, because I will be playing as Mewtwo and Link and Solid Snake and every once in a while Mario. But there's so many different characters that I want to play in that game. Let's see, Mareth. Yes, it did hurt, by the way, Darth Primus. But no, actually, take it back. It hit and I went numb instantly. And I was looking at it bleed and I just didn't feel anything. See, Mareth Dealine, thank you very much for your super chat, my friend. Sup, Mr. Shitter? You get my email about the Tombstone Western Watch Party. I've seen the email. I haven't had a chance to respond yet. But while Red Dead Redemption is hot, and American Trent 007 is alive, we'll do a Tombstone watch party. I will read your email and get back with you. Like I said, yesterday was all about the comic. That, one of the pages I was working on took a little longer than it needed to because I got sidetracked. But I will respond to you, man. I will respond to you, and I'll get back to that. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you for your super chat, my friend. Tomb Raider is still the best video game movie for me. I went and saw Tomb Raider in theaters. I walked out, and I snuck into Fast and Furious instead, and that really kind of changed my life, too, because I really like those movies. I acknowledge that they're not great, but I have a good feeling towards the Fast and the Furious. Vin Diesel, there were not many cool people, or people cooler than Vin Diesel in 2001. Rock, Vin Diesel, they were some badass dudes. Little did I know they would cross over one day. Live stream Super Smash Bros. Ultimate against Jeremy. I will play against Jeremy. The only problem is you cannot stream Nintendo games on YouTube. I guess I'll have to do it on Twitch. But, for example, Nintendo has this thing called the Creators Program where they take 40% of your ad revenue, all of it, and I'm not giving up what little we still make to Nintendo. That just isn't fucking happening. I didn't realize they're still going after Stan Lee, Jason Bourne. I guess we'll talk about that at greater detail on the High Council tonight, because I'm not gonna stand up for that shit, or I'm going to stand up for that shit, against that shit. That is not how Stan Lee will be remembered. I personally will not allow that. He wasn't a perfect person, nobody is, but the joy he brought the world will not be snuffed out by a couple of dickheads on social media. Nobody's going to remember him that way. We're going to remember him as the fucking co-creator of Spider-Man. Or, you know what? A lot of people are just going to say the guy that created Marvel Comics. That's, to be honest, that's how he's going to be mostly remembered. Shano Cyber9 Avila, thank you very much for your super chat. If they ever make a Mass Effect movie trilogy, I will rewind the part over and over when Shepard, female or male, punches the reporter. I need to play, I guess, the first two, right? Or is it the fourth one that's the garbage one? Once the comic is done, and I have some time, I do want to get into a game. I really need to finish Metal Gear Solid 5. I have that. I've never finished it. But I need to finish, or I need to get a game. Red Dead's fine. I'm admittedly a little burnt out. But, I need something like that. Maybe Mass Effect could be the thing. Alec Munoz, I'm saddened to hear that. The third one is the garbage one. The last Fast and Furious movie was better than G.I. Joe. Yeah, I like them, man. They're guilty pleasures. I only own 5 on Blu-ray, but a Fast and the Furious box set would be something I'd actually get a lot of usage out of. And I enjoy the first one, too. I just thought that shit was cool, man. Like, for those that don't live in America, or those that are a couple years younger than me, if you're close to my age, there was, like, at that time, those, like, modded street racer cars and certain type of music, and all that was cool. And as a teenager, like an early teenager, I bought into that pretty heavily. That and wrestling were my thing for a while. And then it was weird. I got into the comic book stuff, and I kind of got out of that, what was current and cool stuff, and I kind of just got into this whole new world that was almost 40 years old at that point with Spider-Man. Tokyo Drift was the worst. It is the worst Fast and Furious movie, but it's still not completely garbage. Doom Eternal is what I'm waiting for, says JSP. I may give that a shot. Like I said, first-person shooters are guilty pleasures that I enjoy. Maybe Call of Duty. I hate to admit it. Sometimes they're fun. I don't own any of them. I own Black Ops 1. But maybe Black Ops 4? I don't know. Question mark. Good morning, proper Jeremy, my friend. Hello. Weed eater sounding Hondas. Yeah, I used to think those were cool, dude. And now I'm an adult and I'm like, no thanks. I'll take a nice car. Hey, you were into tuner culture up until 2014. Oh man, tuner culture was like, honestly, I was into it till about 2005, and then I got my first car in 2007, and I couldn't afford for it to be a tuner, so I just accepted that I had to drive a Toyota Camry, a 1991, and I just, I was like, I gotta get through college. Alpha Terranima, thank you very much. I would highly recommend a Danganronpa playthrough stream with the bullshitters just to see how you guys react to the wild ride. Well, I'll take a screenshot. Because I've heard of Danganronpa. Wait, that's my selfie camera, which I don't need on. There we go. I know people would say, you can take a screenshot on your computer. Yeah, but it's better to put it on my phone because I'll look at it all the time. But we can do that. I want to get a game. Well, Kendo can never partake because he doesn't have internet. But I'd like to do... If somebody could... Okay, I need some help, folks. Could somebody send me via email or Facebook or Twitter, actually preferably email, worldclassbs@mail.com. Could somebody set me up or send me a tutorial on how to set up a good Streamlabs account and how to do a Twitch thing and how to tie all these together? Because when it comes to the encoder and all these things, I get lost. I really want to do more, but I don't know what I'm trying to do. Plus, in my defense, I'm super busy, so I just kind of need to find the best tutorial. So if somebody can send me a tutorial on how to do Streamlabs to stream this show and all of our streams to show video and audio and have way more crazy stuff, please help me out and help me figure out how to stream with Twitch and do all that stuff connected to YouTube so we can monetize our Twitch stream and do all these other things. Because I would really love to grow our brand, and digital entertainment is the future. Thankfully, we're here making it all the time. But I would really like... yeah, Mr. V, Red Dead is a little tedious for me, especially the goddamn horses. I'm just so tired of going from here, going from there. Dutch says, don't use a gun. It's like, I want to just take everybody out. I want to do that so bad. How the hell does Kendo not have the internet? Well, Kendo lives out in the sticks, and he does not have an internet connection. He uses his phone. That's why he beat boops a lot. I'm getting ready to upgrade here at the house. Like, I'm saving to move. That's my big thing. I don't buy shit. I'm saving to move. But I am going to upgrade our internet connection to 200 megabytes per second and get a super router on Black Friday so I can up the quality of the internet in this house and do everything properly for you guys. Have Dion ride horses. Dion plays Red Dead Redemption 2 religiously. He loves that game. He and his wife are really into it. He's not afraid of digital horses, much like I'm not afraid of, well, okay, digital sharks make me uncomfortable. That's why when I play GTA, I don't go all the way to the end of the map where the shark will eat you, because I'm just like, I just don't want to, I don't like sharks, man. I don't like sharks. Dalton Burchett, thank you very much for Super Chat. Thoughts on the motion comics of the Marvel Animation Collection from Shout Factory? Do you mean like the old ones from the 60s? Is that what's coming out? Let's see. Marvel Animation Collection from Shout Factory. Let me Google that real quick to make sure we're on the same page. Oh, the Marvel Knights. Okay, these. I like these. For a while, some of these were on Netflix. I bought Iron Man Extremis. I bought that on the PlayStation Network back in college. My mom bought me a PlayStation gift card as a gift, and I bought Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix, and then I bought Iron Man Extremis. That was the whole $20, I think. I enjoy those enough. I think I even... Did I do the Jessica Drew Spider-Woman? Is there a Spider-Woman one? Yeah, there is a Spider-Woman one. Did Black Panther as well. I liked the Black Panther one quite a bit, because it was John Romita Jr.'s artwork, and the theme song is terrible. It's like, Black Panther, Black Panther. Go listen to it. These are fun, though. Marvel Knights Animation. I think Neil Adams' company does these. They're good. It's a little weird. I would much rather watch an actual cartoon, but unlike the Marvel cartoons, which, look at, this is the Stan Lee praise episode, but the Marvel animated shorts pale in comparison to the DC ones. Those, or not shorts, but the movies. The DC animation blows those out of the water, because they're too simplistic on Marvel's end, and they pick bad stories. With the Marvel stuff that you're talking about, the motion comics, there's a lot of value and depth added to the stories, and it looks cool. A lot of contrast in the inks and the arts. I really enjoy that. So I'm a fan, Dalton. Anyone out there that's wondering if they should check them out, I say yes. Check them out. You'll love it. It's a good time. It's a good way to consume some Marvel entertainment, if you will. Mr. V named his horse Dion's Nightmare. I named my horse Dion, too. My chocolatey brown horse is named Dion. Let's see where we at. Celtic Dave, thank you very much. Do you have Shudder, Jeff? I know you love horror. Yes, I do have Shudder. I have access to it here. Too bad they don't have a PlayStation app properly. I have to watch it on my computer. But I watched Halloween 4 and 5 right around Halloween, and I overdid it on Halloween this year. Not just the Michael Myers stuff, but I mean horror movies in general. So I'm taking a break from horror until 2019. Maybe I'll watch The Twilight Zone or something, but I'm taking a break. Mutter Meat Seeks, are you asking me to talk about the Pokemon theme? Is that how far back you are on the stream, man? Jason Bourne, it's almost Die Hard season. Jason Bourne, I like your movies. You're a good actor, Matt Damon. Maybe you don't like your politics, Matt Damon. But Jason Bourne, every season is Die Hard season for me. It came out in July of 1988 when my mom was pregnant with me, so I have a special connection because they saw it in theaters. So I was there, just didn't see it. I could watch Die Hard weekly. Seriously. I wish you could all... Okay, so Back to the Future, Star Wars, Die Hard, Beverly Hills Cop. I wish you could all feel how I feel when I watch those movies. Those are the movies that just make me... Like, I feel like they get it on every level. Tell me what that movie is for you, or those movies are for you. I mean, to a lesser extent, we'll get Indiana Jones and some of the other Star Wars films, but those 4 movies are, like, if honestly, if I'm going to an island, they said, Jeff, you can only watch 4 movies forever, I'm gonna watch those 4. I never get tired of them. I could watch Star Wars on a loop and not be bored. Because I love the movies that start in one place and end in another, and you're like, man, how did I get from this shitty desert planet to the fucking space battle? You know, it all builds, it expands. It's not, there's no long, boring exposition. It just keeps going and going and going. And so, oh, Black Panther. Black Panther. Black Panther. I can't do it because it's got like these weird African drums and this like wooden oboe sounding thing. Just look up Black Panther theme animation. I bought that on iTunes. I bought Watchmen Chapter 1 and I bought Black Panther. Or maybe they were free, but I had them at one point. The thing is, I'm into Black Panther as a character, and I like especially the early Black Panther stuff. Another Stan Lee, Jack Kirby creation. It's funny too. I know a lot of the NPC people got upset with Black Panther because the truth is it's created by 2 Jewish dudes from New York. It's not this, this militant black dude in the 60s. And I'm so sorry that, this character that has, resonated for 40 years and caught on was created by 2 white dudes from New York. Stan Lee got it. I love. It's funny how these NPC people want to tear down Stan Lee because Stan Lee fought for the shit you people misguidingly fight for. Stan Lee. If there was a culture war back in the day, Stan Lee was a general, and the dude really helped Marvel. And even in DC, some of their stuff they tried to do with Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams and those guys, they were trying to talk about some cultural stuff too. But Stan Lee got it on a whole nother universal level. I've never seen Die Hard, but OG Star Wars, Spider-Man, Back to the Future, Lord of the Rings, those movies breathe life to me. Okay, so we're on the same page with Back to the Future, Spider-Man, and Star Wars. I haven't watched Lord of the Wings. That sounds like a really good restaurant. Lord of the Wings. Breakfast. No, but Lord of the Rings, I have respect for it. I just don't do sword and sorcery fantasy with like magical, mystical mages. Star Wars is that, but with sci-fi mixed in, and I can buy it then. Sci-fi is an easier sell to me than pure, no technology fantasy. Brandon Moist, thank you very much, my friend. Been having a rough 24 hours. Good morning, pop culture always helps. Well, Brandon Moist, no matter how rough the 24 hours may be, remember, you are Brandon Moist. You are the fan of World Class Bullshitters that has an episode dedicated in your honor. You, sir, are a legend. Every time your name pops up in the chat, people go, oh shit, it's Brandon Moist. You have had a very big impact on this channel, man. So you are one of the few people that have ever made me laugh so hard I had a headache. So no matter what you do, you enjoy this show, well, you've made me enjoy it too on a whole nother level. So thank you, Brandon Moist. And if you ever need to shoot the shit with me or talk to me, you know how to contact us. I'm a little busy, but I always do my best to respond. You guys may send an email on a Monday. You may get a response on Friday, but you'll get a response. It's part of the community we don't really talk about, but hey, if you want to talk to somebody, I'm always there to listen, man. Lord of the Wings: Return of the Zing. Is that their sauce? Well, okay, so can somebody turn Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers into flavors? Because we have Return of the Zing. That's a spicy buffalo. God damn, I'm hungry. I haven't had breakfast yet. DJ D Show has a message for everybody that says, hit the moist muff button. Please, folks, help us get... If you watch the show, do us a favor, do us a solid, hit us up with a thumbs up. Those are the best ways to help the channel outside of, how we refunnel in our super chats into the channel. That's why next year at Star Wars Celebration, we're going to be able to do all kinds of crazy stuff, have free giveaways, all that stuff. We'd like to thank each and every one of you out there who really helps us, make this a thing. Some days we don't talk about it, but know that I'm very grateful to get up and this is my job. So I couldn't ask for anything more. The Two Spicers, Fellowship of the Tang, Sora Sauce, that's pretty good. Beverly Hills Moist. Dark Knight, Interstellar, Treasure Planet, and Jurassic Park. Those are Billy Ritchie's movies. I'm so glad that The Dark Knight made your list. I almost bought myself a Dark Knight themed Christmas present this year. Trent knows what it is. He's been trying to wear me down. Mutter Me Seeks wins. Lord of the Wings, welcome to Flavortown. Hi, I'm Guy Fieri. I wish I knew some shit besides the Shire. Oh man, I love Guy Fieri for all the wrong reasons. Like, if I could go to Flavortown, I would. I would go first class ticket to Flavortown. I'd even wear the sunglasses on the back of my head. I won't give myself a retarded haircut like Guy Fieri, but I will wear one of those ugly shirts and eat until I puke like Guy Fieri does. Lord of the Rings are more on the sword side of sorcery, and the Hobbit trilogy is where they went full retard with the Magic's Alpha Terranima. I bet you if I sat down to watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I'd probably like it. Here's the thing. Just because I haven't seen something and have no knowledge of it, it doesn't mean I won't accept that I could possibly like it or love it. I could fall in love with the Lord of the Rings just, almost 20 years after they came out. But maybe that's a possibility. Maybe I'll get some copies down the road or something. I got to get the extended cuts, right? I can get those and I can watch them. The older I get, I do enjoy a little bit of Conan the Barbarian. Not love it like a lot of people. It's not my favorite Schwarzenegger flick, but it's pretty solid. That is what I would want out of a Zelda flick, as I look at my Figma Link figure right here on the shelf. A Legend of Zelda, more sword than sorcery. Because Zelda, I guess, fits into that category. And I do like Zelda when it's more European-inspired than Japanese-inspired. And I think that could be the next big franchise. If they do it right, you can include time travel, Young Link. Oh, hopefully it's not too much Young Link, because I don't like movies with kids as the lead. Unless it's the Goonies or the Monster Squad, I just don't buy into it, unless the Wolfman's got nards. Dalton Burchett, thank you very much. Out of all the ones I've seen, I rank Eternals at the top. Inhumans is my second favorite. Those are two that I have not seen, but I will take a screenshot for you, or Super Chat, and I'm going to check those out. Because I always would like to do a motion comic down the road. I'm enjoying doing Stealing Solo. The funny thing is, so when I wrote the script and I did the pitch and all that, I went back and I reread it, and I actually added some more pages in there. That's why I couldn't give you guys on the Indiegogo pitch a set page amount, because it's more than I put 32 down. It's gonna be, God, I think we're almost to 50. I don't want to do a 100-page comic book. I mean, that'd be a great value for everybody. It's not even about, the printing cost. I just don't think I could pump out 100 pages in time. But there are certain visual jokes and gags and nods that I had to include. Like, I wrote a joke about myself as Chewbacca. So if you've met me, you know that would work. And there's this tennis ball gag that just keeps running through the story, and it's so, I mean, maybe I'm just entertaining myself, but I think you guys, anybody that knows how movies are made, you're really going to appreciate a lot of the jokes and I appreciate everyone that backed it. So be prepared. It'll ship out in February, and depending on where you live, it'll get there afterwards. But I'll keep giving you guys updates. Mareth Dealine, thank you very much. Lord of the Rings, I'm a huge Tolkien fan, perhaps even more than I am of Star Wars. Mareth Dealine, you and I need to talk one day over the internet. Maybe we can, if we do a commentary for Lord of the Rings, you could, talk to me about comparisons to the books and all that stuff. We could do that as a fan thing for sure, because I do like to learn. I mean, part of me wants to go back to school and, go to law school or something, because I do enjoy learning. When I don't have other things to focus on, I can just strictly get into learn mode. I like it. It takes me back to college, and, I liked college. I was a good student. But Lord of the Rings, you guys could teach me so much about it as we watch it. So maybe that's something we do. If there's enough of an interest in the channel, we could do that. We could do it on a Saturday early. We could start with Fellowship of the Rings, the extended cut. We could watch it. You could tell me about the books and your experiences with Lord of the Rings, and then we could move on to the Two Towers and the Return of the King. And it would be what we're starting on Saturday. We'll end it on Tuesday, but it'll be a lot of fun. Jonathan Hurst, I went to see Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, in theaters. We went to the discount theater back then, because, my mom was a single income household. But the reason I don't really remember it too fondly is because I fell asleep, and I knew the next day my mom was going to drop me off at the theater to go see Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. I'm a Star Wars fan, a loyalist. That's why we do our videos here on the channel about the garbage from Lucasfilm. But man, even Episode 1, when there was hype for a new Star Wars movie, I was like, oh, dude, it's going to be great. And I fell asleep, and my mom's like, I liked Lord of the Rings. It was good. You should have watched it. I'm like, oh, Star Wars tomorrow, Mom. That's all I care about. And that's all I did care about. Was Stan Lee a perv, Jeff? I don't think so. I'm going to go with no. I don't know everything about Stan Lee. I know what Stan Lee represented. I know about what Stan Lee said and did, and the good he brought and the happiness he brought to the world. I ask you to not to ignore things, but here's the thing about Stan Lee. Stan Lee doesn't have this dark past, this dark thing about him. He really brought a lot of good and optimism to the world, and that is why you have such a huge outpouring. I mean, if you go back and listen to old episodes, I don't know numbers, but I do talk about when Stan Lee dies, man, the world's going to weep. So please, do me a favor. Look into his legacy and learn for yourself that his legacy is not wrought with all this negativity and garbage that people are trying to bring to his name. This is part of the culture war. This is an attempt for these people to go and say, oh, you love what Stan Lee created? He was this monster. And then they'll try to have you discredit his work. And then, oh, look at ours, though. We're good and we're virtuous. And our work represents this. And this is why our versions are better than Stan Lee's. I don't give a shit what person tries to beat Stan Lee. You will never, ever beat the output that man had. So, Mercutio, do not worry. Stan Lee wasn't a perv. I don't know about his personal life, but he was a married man for many, many years to the same woman. So I like to think of Stan Lee as a good dad, a good husband, and him and his wife seemed so happy together. And that's why it was really sad when his wife passed away last year, and now he's passed away. And if you believe in it, they're reunited and they're happy. So depending on your outlook of the afterlife or of death, they've been reunited, and that's the best part of all of it. So, Stan Lee was the man. Seriously, I firmly believe it. Nobody has a moniker greater than Stan Lee. Stan the Man Lee. Jack Kirby was king. Steve Ditko was smiling. John was ring-a-ding Romita. But seriously, Stan the Man Lee. I applaud his memory. And it's not because he's dead. I did it when he was alive. I'll do it continuously forever. I mean this. You can talk about, oh, I was inspired by this person or that person. You're like, I love The Rock. Sometimes when I'm like, man, I really don't feel like doing this last set, or I think of The Rock and I'm like, got to get the clanging and banging. I want to live a healthier life, or how to interact with people when people are douchey. I look at him for that. But Stan Lee's creations have inspired me beyond what I can tell you. That's why we're doing a comic. That's why this channel is the way it is. We talk about geek culture. It's Stan Lee's contributions. It wasn't what Bill Kane or Bob Kane and Bill Finger did. I love Batman. Much respect to Bill Finger. But it wasn't what those guys did. It wasn't what these other people did. It was all what Stan Lee did. I mean, I cannot sing his praises high enough. The dude was an icon. Will forever be an icon. I will not allow this bullshit to smear Stan Lee's good name. It's really a part of this culture war. You know what? I'm working on the culture war series. It may take a little while. Culture war. Stan Lee. Stan Lee is now part of the culture war series. This isn't grave standing. I keep reiterating that too, because we're a very public forum and people like to take sound bites and, oh, they said this at this thing. So then if people listen to it for like 10 seconds, they think I said something, but I reiterate the point quick enough to where they hear it. But like I've said countless times, dead or alive, Stan Lee, I had nothing but respect for the man. I was bummed out. I know this sounds dumb. I didn't go to the gym yesterday. I was so bummed out when I found out he died. I was just like, huh. So I picked up the Wacom tablet and I got back to working on this book. But man, I just was like unhappy for a while. Seriously, I cared that much about a person I never met. There's only one other celebrity. Two, take it back. The 3 to 4 celebrities I actually was genuinely upset when they died. Gene Wilder. I was like, man, Willy Wonka died? Fuck, I love Willy Wonka. I was sad as hell when Roger Moore died. I stopped. I was working on a video on the channel. I stopped because I was like, Roger Moore passed away? Oh, God damn it. No. I was so upset when Roger Moore... I love James Bond. I always thought of him as this fictional character. And then the first James Bond to die did. I was like, oh, man. I think Adam West died the next day. That bothered me, too. Not to the same degree as anyone else, but I was like, man, Batman passed away. Again, really sad. And then finally, Stan Lee. Stan Lee was the one where I just was like, holy shit. This is a day I've been dreading for a long time. Havoc1137, I think we should. For all the SJWs that want to go on and attack Stan Lee, do me a favor, guys. Let's get this started. Hashtag I'm a true believer. True believers, if you loved Stan Lee and his memory and respected what he stood for and created, use it. Hashtag I'm a true believer. I'm not going to buy into these people trying to tear down the guy. Fuck them. Seriously, that is my standpoint. That is my soundbite. You want to shit on the legacy of Stan Lee? Fuck them. No, that ain't happening. Not on my watch. Not on anyone's watch. It's so funny how these people can want to die on this ideological sword, but you've now picked the topic that will turn off everybody who could have stood for what you believe in, or they'll just stand quietly while you espouse this garbage. You want to post shit like this? Kevin Smith, I don't really care too much about his work output today, but he will not stand for this. Robert Downey Jr., all these public figures that want to praise Stan Lee, they're not going to stand up for your garbage. This could be the great schism of geek culture for those who attack Stan Lee and for those who defend Stan Lee. Stan Lee love comes from a very deep emotional place. You don't want to go there. Not now, not ever. The wound is too fresh. Dalton Burchett, Jeff, how about a book of all this madness? I could do that. I actually would like... It's funny. When I wrote the comic, I had a good time. The thing is, when you write a comic, the scripts are different, and then the art takes the longest. I would love to write a book, get it edited, and put it out there. I think a comic book appeals to more people, especially in the geek culture genre, but I'd love to write a regular book on the culture war. I took a screenshot of your super chat, and I'm throwing that down in the old memory banks, because that is a fantastic idea. We could do a YouTube series, and then we could turn it into a book down the road. The Great Culture War, us versus them, something, something, something. Watchman for you. So how's the book coming along at World Class Bullshitters? Thinking of Stan Lee. The book's coming along. I'm working on it. I'm getting ready to knock out another page today. I knocked the other one out. It's going well. My pencils, since I'm doing penciling and inking, my pencils are a lot looser, and I go in with the pen, the ink tool, and I really go into greater detail. Now, the first 3 to 4 pages of this story are very straightforward. It's meant to represent when life was like a certain structure. Then the page layouts become a little more different and varied and detailed, because it's meant to represent, my psyche and how things change, and things are becoming more and more I don't want to say explosive. What's the right phrase? Basically, as the story gets a little crazier, the panel layouts, go crazy too. The page I'm going to work on today is going to be actually fun because there's broken panels and the figure goes over these other panels and they're draped over it. There's just a lot going on with what page number is it? I do these out of order. So I have a lot of pages done, but I don't do them in order. I've done a lot of the stuff with Captain Solo himself first because it was fun, but I haven't gotten this back from a colorist yet. But it's going along great. I'm loving it. It's really, I don't know. I know this sounds really hokey, but it's an honor to be able to do this and that thousands of people want my work. And if you guys have already been receptive to it, I will do more stuff and we will have a lot of fun. And yeah, I'll do comics and that could be part of my income. I could be the internet comic guy where I don't do conventions. I don't do this, but you can buy your books. You can talk to me. I won't be a disembodied voice forever. Once I get my office together, I will do some videos, and you will know me, and you'll read my work, and maybe one day you'll even meet me. Just remember to give some Jeremy clones to lead. Oh, the Clone Jeremy Army, I hope you have my back, because I have your back. My pencils are a lot looser, Jeffix 2018. You could try to make that dirty, but if you're an artist, you know well what that means. Herpicus McTurpington, you guys are finally getting your notifications? Oh shit, as the show's about to end. I'll go a little longer because people have some interesting questions. If you guys ever want to keep me on the air, you know how to do it. So MCOC Josh says, "Hey Jeff, how does making a comic work? Like how long?" Well, the writing part's really easy since I do the art and the story. I can basically write out like Jeff walks here, and then I write all the dialogue, and then when I do okay, so let me break it down. First, you have a concept. That's usually a paragraph or even a sentence for me. Like, we kidnap Harrison Ford and force him to remake Star Wars in our basement. That's the first concept. Then what I do, for me personally, is I sit down and I think quietly what kind of beats I want to hit. So we kidnap him. This happens. And I have a long list of the beats. I'll tell you the truth. I came up with most of the story beats at the gym. One day I was doing something, you know how your mind works in weird ways when you're out in public? I thought, story idea. So I went over to the side and I texted myself every story beat that I wanted to hit. And then what I'll do is after I have those story beats, I basically put a space between each one, and then I start to fill them in. How do we kidnap him? What is said? This, that, and the other. So basically, I build my script like that. A roundabout way is what I'm saying is you come up with a concept, then you write your script. Then for me, I draw it, and then I ship it off, and then that's pretty much it. The only thing left that I have to do, extra-wise, is I have to take the script. I have to do two things. I have to give explicit detail to the colorist, and I have to tell my friend, the letterer, what I want, how I want it. I'm also going to shoot it past an editor, Dustin, who used to live, not live here, who used to be on the show, and I'm going to ask Dustin to go and make sure I have it grammatically correct when I send it off to the letterer. There will be no questions about that stuff, because I do not want to have a poorly crafted comic book. So that is my step. Now, if I worked, let's say I had other people I was working with, because I've done comics collaboratively. Yeah, I said it right the first time. I'm congested, excuse me. So I'll get a script, then I'll do roughs, then I'll draw it and ink it, and then that's it. And that's my my stage. I much more like doing it all myself, the writing and the artwork. I'm open to writing it and having somebody else draw it too, but thankfully I got to do it first all myself. Jeff, do you read books like novels? I read a lot of books that aren't really fiction. I actually have that book that Ethan illustrated, that 12 Steps book, because I thought, hey, Ethan worked on it. Why not support a friend? So I actually have that on Audible right now. I'm going through Audible to listen to my books. It's a lot of fun because I can do comics and learn at the same time. Life's good. Alec Munoz, thank you very much. Jeff, what is your favorite Metal Gear Solid game? Twin Snakes or number 2? Number 2 I played through all the way. I have the version for the Xbox, so what is that? Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance, right? Is that it? The one for Xbox that's essentially Metal Gear Solid 2 with a little better in terms of graphics and stuff. I played the shit out of that game. But I like the first one as well because Solid Snake's one of my favorite video game characters. I actually, I spoiled myself and I bought a Metal Gear Solid Snake action figure from Japan. And that's about as excited as I got recently. But I did get that to go with my Figma link and my Super Mario Brothers SH Figure Arts because I want to build a mini Super Smash Brothers action figure collection just for fun. Kevathar 1138 or 1138, depending on how big of a Lucas fan you are. Thank you very much for your super chat. Took Stan's death hard yesterday. My mom got me into geek culture, Star Wars, Marvel, Tolkien, and I lost her last year. Losing Stan Lee was like losing another tie to her. Just hurts over and over. Sorry to be a downer. No, man, Kevathar, never apologize. I like to think that this channel is a forum where you can be honest. Maybe, you have a screen name and that's it, but you guys can tell your honest to God thoughts. I was sad too. Go back and listen. I wanted to talk about Stan Lee, but I was genuinely sad and bummed out. And like you, my mom got me into geek culture too. Now, thankfully, I have not lost my mom, but I can understand if something like that had happened to me and then Stan Lee passed away, because it kind of snowballs. Your thoughts and your emotions snowball into these other things. You're thinking about one thing and you're sad about this, and then you think about her and how it was connected, and it's like, oh, that's no longer here, and you just keep getting sadder and sadder. I get that, man. I like to think of myself as like a friend to everybody, and we can talk about these things. I mean, let's see, in my lifetime, 3 of my family members have died. Now, 2 of them I remember because I was old enough, but my aunt died when I was 2, so I don't really remember her. But 2 of my uncles died, and I always think, like, okay, so example, my one uncle was into wrestling with me when I was a little kid, and it's funny, he tried to get me into wrestling, he bought me Hulk Hogan stuff, I just wasn't connecting. I wanted Batman and superheroes and eventually Power Rangers. But as I got into wrestling, we had this bond. And, when he's like, think of me when you go to WrestleMania, because he died when I went off to WrestleMania. But he had told me, he's like, look, I'm going to die, because he was in hospice. And he said, you go and you have fun, and you don't, you think of me when you're there. And I did, and it was a good feeling. You're sad, but you remember him. And so the Stan Lee thing for you is like that for me, and I get it. So I took it hard, too. I never met Stan Lee. Obviously, I'm never going to meet him now. But I get it, the thing is, nobody lives your life the same way you do. So you have different feelings, different thoughts, different connections to all of these things. So when something happens, you take it differently. I mean, we're all saddened by Stan Lee's death, but it reminded you of certain things, and I get it, man. So, thank you for telling me this. I'm glad I got to tell you something about me, too. And, just all I ask is that you remember the good times. When my grandma dies and my mom die and all these terrible things happen, like I said about Watchmen, you tend to remember the good times only. So, it's easier said than done. I understand that. But, again, it's eventually these things soften, and you think about the better and the better and the better times. Like my other uncle that passed away. I was away at Dion's in Michigan. I got the phone call he died. I came back from New Year's. I went and I went to a funeral and stuff, and it was sad. But we celebrated his life. We went to Vegas and remembered him because he loved to go to Vegas. And his favorite movie was Christmas Vacation. So every year I watched that. And I don't, at first I watched, I was like, man, Uncle Ken's dead, blah, blah, blah. And I felt kind of sad. But then as time went on, I thought more, it gets easier, it gets softer. But now I look back at this movie and I'm just like, oh, it's a family tradition. And, no matter what, depending on what you believe, he's watching it from another place and all this stuff. So I get it, man. I get it 100%. So I think, let's see, do we have any other really good questions? I will check out the Razor Fist video. You know what, folks? Since we're going to close out, do me a favor. Give us a thumbs up and go watch Razor Fist's video. I'm waiting to hear back from Razor Fist. We're going to get together soon. Very soon. We've talked. I just don't know exactly when the date is, because sometimes it's hard to keep up on Twitter. So we've both agreed to meet over Daredevil. We're going to obviously talk about Stan Lee. And Stan Lee's legacy on Daredevil is a little interesting. I think he may have had more input than maybe Spider-Man. I don't know, Bill Everett. Bill Everett was the artist, and he was late and all these things. So I need to look more into the whole creation of Daredevil. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I hope you had as much fun as I did. Yes, there were moments of sadness, but I think we all, at least for me, I got to say what I wanted to say about Stan Lee. A lot of people heard some new things about Stan Lee. So after you're done checking out Razor Fist's video, go online, read some Stan Lee comic books, learn a little bit about the man. He was a World War II veteran. He fought for the country. He was a good person. Please do not let these crazy fringe people ruin the legacy for you. I didn't lie. I didn't make up garbage shit to just make you think a certain way about Stan Lee. I gave you my thoughts. I presented a lot of facts about Stan Lee, and he, in fact, was the man. So, Dalton Burchett, thank you very much for your super chat. Take care, Jeff. I will take very good care of myself. I will think about Stan Lee today. I will work on a comic. I will get prepared for the High Council tonight here on World Class Bullshitters. 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to talk about Stan Lee with Ethan for a moment because he worked in the industry. So if you have any other questions for him about that, tonight's the time to ask him. We're going to be talking about our old friend Star Wars and some more of the garbage that's coming. We'll be talking about the Mandalorian, the Muffdalorian, all of these things. And we're going to be having a lot of fun. So folks, have a good day. I will be back later tonight, and I will definitely be back tomorrow with good morning pop culture.